of the tragedy. Reports in Equating media say the building was very overcrowded. Mr. Asaba said that any such violations of property law would be dealt with.
The top story at 3 o'clock, Cooperative Governance Minister Thembing Kadimeng has classified last week's tornado that hit areas in the north of Durban as a national disaster. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemel.
Coming up in News Sports this hour, PSL awards date and time confirmed, and Sri Lanka on the brink of an exit out of the T20 World Cup after washout. More details at 3:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation. The cost of living crisis is real. Here's what one OUTsurance client did about it.
I'm Amy. I'm 26 from Kenilworth. When I got my 2022 Ford EcoSport, the immediate thought was to phone OUTsurance, and I pay only 819 Rand per month. No insurers were able to beat or match the premium that I'm currently paying.
Want a car insurance premium that will blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now for a quote and to find out about included benefits like panic assistance that sends the nearest medical or armed response unit to you wherever you may be 24/7. Here's Yusuf.
45 years old from Tygerberg, Western Cape. I pay 700 Rand for my Polo 1.6 2021 model. If you haven't called OUTsurance yet, definitely get in touch.
Give it a go. SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. OUTsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
Water infrastructure vandalism has costly and usually dangerous consequences. Stealing of manhole covers leads to the death of children. Every broken pipe or vandalized pump doesn't just cost money, but it also threatens our access to clean water, disrupts service delivery, and endangers public health and safety. Help us in the fight against water infrastructure vandalism by reporting any suspicious activity to the City of Johannesburg on 0800 002 587. Your vigilance can prevent a death or disaster. This message is brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
Are you ready to empower yourself with an accredited tertiary qualification? Stadio Higher Education's distance learning programs will set you up for success. Whether you're balancing work and family or you're a school leaver who must work to support yourself and your studies, Stadio offers access to high-quality, affordable qualifications in law, teacher education, commerce, admin and management, policing, and more. Mid-year applications are now open. Visit stadio.ac.za and register today. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
And we would buy 500 cars, and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price, and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
And a warm welcome. This is indeed the National Pulse. Thank you for being a part of the show, and 3 hours of so many things that absolutely moves the National Pulse. I can think about that electoral court's decision to dismiss Jabulani Khumalo's application to remove Jacob Zuma as the leader of the MK party. We'll chat to the EFF with regard to their thoughts on the Government of National Unity, being Youth Month, youth entrepreneurship. How do they get that right? There's a South African family stuck in Equatorial Guinea. We'll cover that story. And then the IFP, their presser comes up at 5 o'clock. And clearly, that has to be a very, very important press conference. All of that and so much more here on issues that move the National Pulse. Let's start with the daily That's My Point feature. So political parties, well, they need to make a deal to form a government for the benefit of all South Africans. But the question is, what do we have right now? The DA and its allies, the EFF and MK and its allies, the ANC, which appears to be split itself between ANC leaning towards the DA versus the ANC leaning towards the EFF and the and the MK party, and the IFP, who currently are being wooed by all different parties, right? So much of the discourse after the election has been a case of, Party A can't work with Party B because that party is tainted. Party B can't work with Party C because they don't talk to each other. And I can go on and on and on, right? So what are we missing from all of this? We're missing this fact that the ANC, as the governing party, doesn't have a mandate to govern on its own any longer. That's a fact. We're also missing the fact that the DA doesn't have a mandate to govern. The MK party does not have a mandate to govern, and the EFF does not have a mandate to govern. What all the parties do have is a mandate to do what's best for the people of South Africa. That mandate has been given by all of us as voters, right? So not what's best for one group, but what's best for the people, all the people. The people must be central to the decisions that these political parties make. Am I stating the obvious here? I think it is, and yet, isn't it? So the question is, we're all in this together, right? So think of us in a boat that has hit a leak, and you have 4 people in the boat, and we need to get to shore as soon as possible, or that boat's going to leak and sink, of course, right? And the only way we can get there are these 4 people need to all grab one oar and then to row in sync. And even if the 4 don't talk to each other, it doesn't really matter. They have to agree on one thing. We need to row with synchronicity to get to the shore on time, or else. The shore represents our safe ground. It represents South Africa's land of safety, a land where each one of us can then go on to fully realize our fullest potential. That's the choice, isn't it? Land or water, failed nation or champion nation. If you ignore that, then you really do believe what we believe, that our vote truly does matter. I'm Ashraf Garda, and that's my point. Now, what's yours?
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, there you are. You can add your thoughts on my image of the 4 people in the boat trying to get to safety and talk or not to each other. They need to find a way. So much to reflect on that. What do you think, okay? WhatsApp, voice notes or text 0614 104 107. You can call in 086 000 2032. You can tweet out on the X platform. Use that hashtag, The National Pulse. Do the same on Facebook as well. You'll find SFM Radio and you'll find my handles, Ashraf Garda. Love it if you tag all of us and just connect and give us a shout out in terms of where you are. And as you often do, and many people do it every day, like, hey, I'm from Oudendaalsrus, so give us a shout out, tell us where you are, and if you like what you like about the show, whatever it is, you can certainly add that too, maybe we'll give you a shout out as well. So there we are, that's the big issues that we have, right? And the issues are absolutely big, we know that, we'll get your call soon. Let's start with that issue of the Electoral Court dismissing an application by Jabulani Khumalo with punitive costs. You may recall that Khumalo approached the Electoral Court. This story has been ongoing in a bid to have the IEC's record of the former President Jacob Zuma as the leader or president of the MK party invalidated and therefore set aside. So we know that. What does all that mean? Lukona Nguni is with me, political analyst. We last met negotiating a coalition deal. Clearly at the Rock, it hasn't quite worked out as yet for us. Lukona, hi.
Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners. Of course, coalition building takes time, so people must be patient, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, okay. I'll talk about that in a second. Let's touch on firstly the implications, as you see it, of that Electoral Court dismissing Jabulani Khumalo's, position to have Jacob Zuma removed as the leader of the MK. Now we know this is like a days of our life story, isn't it?
No, I mean, of course, and I think it confirms that processes do matter and they mean something. So when things were all well and good, Jabulani Khumalo did participate in the amendment of the party leader, because remember at the time they were fighting to make sure that the face that would be on the ballot papers would be the face of former President Jacob Zuma. And so there was an entire process to substitute himself for former President Zuma. And of course, I think what is also important is that in the same judgment, Electoral Court almost made it common cause that Jabulani Khumalo has now since been expelled from MK party when they were dealing with the issue of local standing. And I think it may well have adverse effects on his Western Cape High Court a matter where he's contesting the fact of his expulsion and that he ought to be sworn in as a member of parliament.
Now, suppose, between them, the two individuals, that spat, if I can call it spat for want of a better word, could continue, I don't know, for weeks, for months, I don't know. The more important issue for all of us as South Africans is what impact does that have on the MK party?
No, I don't think it has much impact on the MK party, as you call it. At least in the immediate, on the MK party's ability to either convene and attend sittings of parliament and have representatives. But it's the kind of spat that could actually lead to tearing the organization apart. If you remember, the Congress of the People in 2009 got 30 seats in parliament. They didn't forfeit those seats simply because there was ongoing litigation battles between Mbazi Mashilo and Tera Likota at the time. So the party continued to appear as though it was alive, and yet it was actually dying inside with every round of litigation and disagreement because it crystallized factions and all of these things. And so what we now need to see over time is whether or not Jabulani Khumalo enjoys a degree of some support internally within MK party, or Zuma actually has quite a strong hold on the party.
And what do you think? Who is with Jabulani Khumalo in pulling some strings?
I have no doubt that people who feel aggrieved that he probably is being ill-treated and being chucked out whilst he was used as the initial face and founder of the party, and that whatever differences may exist between him and former President Zuma, it may well be that there would be other ways to solve them. So I wouldn't be surprised that there are people within MK party who at least sympathize with his plight and therefore are supportive of him. And we know that, former President Zuma has attempted to act on people on sometimes what one may even call bogus intelligence reports. If you remember when he recalled the Minister of Finance and Treasury from an international roadshow based on some what appeared to be a fictitious intelligence report. So the point I'm making is that, Ashraf, generally in politics, people eventually amass a following, and where it's not clear whether or not Jabulani Khumalo, in the short stint that he had as the leader of the MK party, and then after the arrival of former President Jacob Zuma to take over, he had enough time to amass that following. But that will be clearer in terms of we will have to scan for public support on social media, in the mainstream media, and so on, and whether or not there will be people who may wish to resign from MK party in protest of him not winning.
Okay.
Of course, Jabulani will have some time to probably go to upper courts for a review of that outcome of the electoral court.
Yeah, you're right. If we knew that there was a significant following for Jabulani Khumalo, I think it would be pretty evident and obvious right now. So it may not be the case. But that brings me on to the other issue that we know that Jacob Zuma himself will not be in Parliament if and when the MK party decides to actually go to Parliament, right? So who's behind him in terms of who then would be the public faces of the MK party that we would see day in and day out when they finally get to Parliament?
Well, if you look at the national list of MK, at least you get to see some familiar faces. There's Van Rooyen, who served in Zuma's cabinet, of course, over a weekend as Minister of Finance, and then went on to lead at COPTA. You've got Duduzile Zuma, former President Zuma's daughter. You've got the spokesperson, Dlamulo Ndlela. On that list, I think you've got the head of elections, Muzi Chingila, as well on that list, and quite a number of other names then that come from various regional to national lists. Not many names that I have seen or known, but the ones that I have at least named are people that I think the public is familiar with, and those will be the people that on the day-to-day we would see carrying out the business of MK party.
And you're right, whether it's in Parliament or outside, I think even people like Andile Imkutama is quite clear in his position within the MK party, right? How then, and that brings me on to the other issue, how much of an update do you have on this, what is likely to happen with regards to MK in the next few hours?
Well, I think their last-minute sort of SOS meeting to the IFP has sort of suspended the course of events. I'm sure that they are going to meet and see if they can work out a deal in KZN. But, I mean, the truth of it is that MK Party will have to think carefully about its next moves. I think everybody should probably appeal to them that they attend the first sittings, because that does not necessarily negate their legal rights if they really feel aggrieved about the electoral outcome. And they can still pursue whatever litigation they believe they need to pursue. I mean, in a legislature like KwaZulu-Natal, where MK Party has 45% of the seats, I mean, the legislature would probably look quite empty if they do not attend. It might not be the same picture everywhere, but I think for the optics and the necessity of democracy, it's probably best that they attend and then deal legally with whatever issues they may have.
Yeah, but it's interesting. On the one hand, it appears the MK Party on the front foot in terms of picking up the legal challenges around the results of the election, something we've spoken about extensively before. But is there a flip side to that in doing just that and therefore not being part of any negotiations, they found themselves on the back foot in terms of making a deal?
No, I think even if they had participated in negotiations, they were always going to have probably a far higher moral threshold placed on them by other political parties, particularly because of the involvement of former President Zuma and what the other parties have said about him and his participation in hollowing out the state and weakening the state and weakening institutions of democracy. And therefore, even if they had tried to participate, I mean, the GA was quite clear that they wouldn't want to be part of a government of national unity that involves MK Party. I mean, the ANC has not had the burden to express itself. Safe to say that they simply said, they tried to reach them and they blue ticked them. But I think the ANC itself is a bit nervous to rope in MK Party to a government of national unity, because, I mean, you would be seen for all intents and purposes, not to say that some of them are not harbored within the ANC, but you would be seen as returning some people who were pointed out in the Zondo Commission as having been at the center of some of these dealings with Guptas and other corrupt elements.
Fair point. Okay, just in 30 seconds, we have an IFP presser coming up, and we actually do have that first sitting in Parliament on Friday. What do you think is likely to happen? And you've got 30 seconds.
Well, I think it's going to be an interesting one. The one thing that I'm looking forward to is who's going to be Speaker of the National Assembly. My view is that the Speaker of the National Assembly can come from the dominant parties in the government of national unity, but let's see how the parties have decided to call that one.
Okay, can't come from the dominant parties. I wonder who that be. Going to start looking at some of the smaller parties. Hint, hint. Lakona Mguni, appreciate your time. Thanks for your time. I'm sure we'll probably chat sometime in the next few hours, because that's how much changes in the world of politics, as we're well aware of. Thank you for your time. There we are. This is the National Pulse. Your thoughts, your comments on all the things we've spoken about thus far, feel free to do just that. I'll take those calls as soon as I can. By the way, you may be aware of the issue of the Rohingya people, right? Well, there's a significant time dateline that we need to talk about, and we'll do that right after this.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So tomorrow, which is Thursday, marks the 11th annual Black for Rohingya campaign, which you may remember when it all started is about the Rohingya people who were massacred in the Arakan state. That's in the second week of June of 2012, right? So since February of this year, hundreds of Rohingya have been killed and over 200,000 of them have been displaced. So it's an ongoing issue. And the question then, considering we now reflect on the 11th annual anniversary of this campaign, what's the purpose of it? And what happens next? So Advocate Shabda Mayat with me, co-founder of Protect the Rohingya, which is a South African awareness organization established here in 2012. Advocate Shabda Mayat, good chatting to you. Hi.
Hey, thank you.
Much appreciated. So tell me, what's it about and the impact, considering it's now 12 years?
So the thing, Ashraf, about genocide is that it doesn't end. And currently we find ourselves living in the time of perpetual genocide. And this year our focus is on the forced conscription, because after the 2021 coup in Myanmar, the military has turned its guns on the civilian population, and the People's Defense Forces, made up of ethnic armies from around the country, have been fighting the military since then. And what has happened since the end of last year is that the Arakan army, who are in Rakhine State, have been fighting the military, have made significant wins. However, them and the military have the Rohingya in the middle. And so it's almost like a rerun of the 2017 genocide of the Rohingya.
And, do I take it that in terms of, I'm going to use the word genocide, in terms of that position, would the end goal have been to exterminate the Rohingya people? And if that's the answer, then have they succeeded?
Well, in 2017, 1 million Rohingya were forced to flee into Bangladesh, and the genocide is the subject matter of a current case running since 2019 at the ICJ. But our concern for tomorrow and the hashtag Black for Rohingya campaign is that Rohingya, with just 2 weeks of training and an offer of around 500 rand in food, are being forced to fight on the side of the military or on the side of the Arakan army, which is the ethnic army in the Rakhine State. And what is happening in essence is they're coming out to the battlefield and facing their own brothers, and it's basically human shields.
And who's forcing them to fight?
The military on the one side, and now they report that of beheadings, of arson attacks from the Arakan army as well, which is the ethnic army on that side. The military is using aerial bombardment and all the normal tactics that they've been using all since the past years. And now the Rohingya find themselves, if the military sees them with the Arakan army, they're killing them. If the Arakan army thinks they're working for the military, they're killing them. So there's nowhere to run. And Bangladesh is saying that they've already got 1 million Rohingya, so they're refusing to let any more in. So where do these people go?
Well, it seems a sense of, helplessness and hopelessness, isn't it? And that's where you come in. Tell me about your campaign then, in terms of what you're hoping to achieve.
Well, our campaign is pretty easy. We wanted something that everyone could participate in. Hashtag Black for Rohingya runs across social media platforms on the 13th of June every year. This is our 11th year, as you said. And all you need to do is wear black, hold up a message of support and solidarity, and post your photo. And if you're not on social media, then we hope that you're going to do it on your family WhatsApp group at least.
It's interesting. I've just been called Man in Black today, by the way. So I'm sort of one day ahead of your campaign, right? What has been the response? A lot has been made of the conversation in South Africa's position regarding Palestine and Israel. There's been lots of conversations about, whether the issues in the Sudan or southern Sudan has been neglected, right? What then has been the position regarding the Rohingya in terms of global conversation and therefore being able to mobilize to stop what you've just said?
I think with the war in Ukraine and Israel's war in Gaza, the Rohingya has taken a back seat as an issue. However, in the ICJ, there's a case running. There's one in the ICC, and there's also a universal jurisdiction case which has been brought in Argentina by Rohingya activists. Because the reality of the situation is that genocide is such a brutal crime that is the problem of all states everywhere in the world.
It certainly is. I mean, do you therefore see, what in terms of the mobilization? So you've made the point about ICJ and ICC. So that's the legal jurisdictions that come into play. But is more needed, and if so, what? Besides the awareness you've just alluded to.
Mm-hmm. So more is definitely needed. And the reality is that when states fail to act, then it's up to citizens to raise their voices. There's also an independent investigative mechanism on Myanmar, which has been collecting evidence over the past years to assist these cases. And there are various organizations around the world that raise their voices around the Rohingya issue. But now more than ever, with the country that has been suffering a military coup since 2021, it's really urgent. And especially because Bangladesh will now not let refugees in. Refugees are doing the same thing they did in 2015, where they took to the sea and the most harrowing conditions. And we know that no one will put their 8-year-old on a boat, if life at home is safer. And so the situation is dire, and the military has cut telecommunications, humanitarian aid, medical. So it's, 600,000 Rohingya, not to mention the 54 million people of Myanmar that are all suffering at the hands of the military junta.
And lastly, just in 30 seconds, South Africa's position regarding the Rohingya?
Well, South Africa has a positive position, has been voting well at the UN, but we can always do more. And I suppose because the Rohingya are far away, we don't do enough. And we're hoping that Black for Rohingya will bring South Africans to the fore and let them say something about the Rohingya genocide.
Of course, that's where we're going to leave it to Advocate Shabna Mai. Thank you for your time, co-founder of Protect the Rohingya, and that's a South African awareness organization established 2012. South Africa on side at one stage, and then again, and another conversation we need to be having is South Africa's foreign affairs or foreign relationships. How is that likely to change in a government of national unity or a coalition-based government that, as we know, is rather imminent? 3:30 news headlines. Here's Madupi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines, the Cooperative Governance Minister Thembing Kadimeg says 280 million rand is needed to rebuild damaged infrastructure in areas hit by last week's tornado in the north of Durban. The World Health Organization has confirmed that there is no registered treatment for the monkeypox disease in South Africa. And the murder case against a Czech fugitive and alleged underworld kingpin Radovan Krejcir has been postponed to next month by the High Court in Joburg. Details coming up at 4.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good afternoon. Durban's N2 North under a bit of pressure. It's been busy today between Kumashu and Gateway. If you're heading up towards the airport, there are still some delays there. The N2 South is looking good now. Mgeta Road to Spaghetti Junction flowing nicely. And the N3 outbound towards Pinetown, just queuing as you approach the M13, the Paradise Valley split. Now, crossing to Gauteng, we've had 3 lanes of the R21 South towards the airport closed off today. At Clayville, just 1 lane open. The queue has been about an hour to work through. If you're leaving Pretoria on your way towards the airport, make sure you've got a ton of extra time to get through that major backlog. Also heading the other way, going north, there's roadworks at Bobsfontein Road, so getting away from the airport up through Kempton Park, that's a heavy queue as well. There's also a collision in the roadworks just before the Bobsfontein exit, so that's all very heavy. Bit of traffic on the N3 through Edenvale, down in towards Galuli, set a change, and Cape Town fairly quiet start. Kuba get a change, looks all right. We will keep an eye on the R300 going into Mitchell's Plain. It's been busy the last couple of afternoons, and there's some roadworks on AZ Berman as you come off the R300 into Mitchell's Plain, which will likely cause delays again this afternoon. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
So we know we have a change of cabinet ministers coming up soon, but our Minister of Sport was not here yesterday.
Yeah.
Tumi, how's it? You back?
I'm good. I'm back.
And I saw you doing some serious pitch reporting on not the Bafana game, was it Madagascar, Mali?
It was Madagascar versus Mali. It was happening at FNB Stadium. So I was doing pre-match interviews with the coaches, wrapping up the halves, and also post-match interviews. It was quite interesting. The Madagascar coach, I was able to speak to him before and after, and I only spoke to the Mali coach before the match. And he refused to do interviews afterwards because he was aggrieved with the officiating from the game yesterday.
Surely can't blame you, but anyway, your big takeout from the game in terms of your work?
It was, in terms of what I was doing.
In terms of your work, the big takeout.
I mean, it was absolutely great because I had to basically analyze the game. And what was very evident yesterday was the missed chances that Mali had.
Okay, so that's the business of sport, by the way. Let's get on to other things. Go ahead.
Well, a very good afternoon to you. Let's start things off with football. The PSL Awards will take place on the 23rd of June, and you can catch all the action on SABC1 from 6 p.m. In case you've ever wondered how the footballer of the season is picked, 16 DSTV Premiership head coaches pick the nominees and they cast their votes. The candidates are judged based on performances in the DSTV Premiership, MTN 8, Nedbank Cup, and the Carling Knockout Cup. 3 players who have the highest votes are nominees, and this season's nominees are Mamelodi Sundowns duo of Ronan Williams, Tebogo Mokoena, and Stellenbosch FC's Ikram Reyners. Meanwhile, Bafana coach Hugo Bruce has hailed Percy Tao's mental strength for insisting to be part of the team despite suffering an injury. Bruce confirmed that Tao couldn't play due to a muscular injury, but still wanted to be on the bench to support the guys on the pitch. Yesterday, Yesterday's win took South Africa level on points with Rwanda, who lead Group C of the FIFA World Cup qualifiers via goal difference. And here's Bruce just elaborating on the game plan.
We made one mistake, a big mistake the first half. We did what Zimbabwe wanted. So we played through the center. The wings didn't stay wide. So that means that everything was on a little surface. And then we tried to make the passes. But it was easy for Zimbabwe to defend. And once they had the ball, immediately they played the ball in front. And that makes sometimes... There were moments in the game that hurt us.
Then elsewhere, it's final. Erik ten Hag will remain as manager of Manchester United. He'll continue as manager under a new structure that has been put in place. And the change is that ten Hag will take the back seat when it comes to recruitment and instead focus on coaching. In cricket, Sri Lanka on the verge of crashing out of the T20 World Cup after rain forced their match against Nepal to be abandoned without a ball bowled. This saw both teams split 1 point apiece. So now for Sri Lanka to qualify for the Super 8, they first need Bangladesh versus Netherlands fixture tomorrow to be a washout. Then they need to beat Netherlands in their last group game on Sunday. And they also need South Africa to beat Nepal by a big margin on Saturday morning. And then for Nepal to beat Bangladesh by a small margin on the 16th of June. So they need a lot of favours, but good news for us. With the Proteas top of Group D, we have officially confirmed our spot in the Super 8. And in terms of the action today, USA take on India. In rugby, assistant coach Robin McBride anticipates an epic showdown between the Bulls and Leinster in Pretoria on Saturday, likening the level of intensity to a test match. Jake White's men provided one of the all-time upsets of the competition by eliminating Leinster in the 2021-22 semi-finals in Dublin, but the six-time Pro 12-14 champions exacted revenge earlier this season with a 47-14 victory at RDS Arena. So White has appealed to Bulls fans to get behind their team and to fill up Loftus for a titanic clash against Leicester. Then finally, anything's off with women in sports. You can nominate your favorite woman in sports celebrity, athlete, administrator, even sponsors or supporters as a whole for the G Sports Awards, because the nominees are officially open. And G Sports Awards basically is all about Africa's premier women's sports recognition to celebrate women in sports. So anyone can nominate women in sports who you think deserve to be celebrated. All you need to do is just head to the gsport.co.za /nomination, and you can nominate anyone until the 9th of August.
And that's a fabulous event. I mean, I've been witness to that very first G Sport event from the time Kes Naidoo started it, and it's grown and it's been formidable. Just quick one: if I asked you to repeat how Sri Lanka can qualify without looking at your papers, you can't do that, can you?
Absolutely not.
Well, I didn't think so, because I would not be able to do it. It's easier to sort out a negotiated deal for the first sitting of Parliament than working out how Sri Lanka can qualify for the Super 8. So let's leave it at that.
They're all but out.
Yeah, right. Next sport coming up. What, in an hour's time? Yeah.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
All right, come on, help me with this one. What moves the national pulse today? We all have our own opinions in terms of what moves it. For me, it would be that IFP news conference coming up at 5 o'clock. Absolutely the most significant event for the day today. But you have your own opinions. What moves the national pulse? Tell me. You can call in as always. You know that. 086 000 2032. WhatsApp, text, voice notes 0614 104 107. Let's get some thoughts on all things, including the cabinet. Right, Mawanda in the Eastern Cape. Hi.
Hi, sir. How are you?
Yeah, very good indeed. Good to talk to you. Right, you've got the answers for the new cabinet already.
Yeah, yes, I want to propose only 5 names for that cabinet.
Okay.
Yes, I would say whoever becomes the president of the government of national unity can consider the following names.
Right.
Firstly, Minister of Police, the Commissioner of KZN, Tata Mkwanas, the Minister of Police.
Okay.
Then number 2, Bantu Holomisa as the Minister of Defense.
Okay, got that. From the Eastern Cape, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Number 3, Musi Maimane as the Minister of Basic and Higher Education.
Okay.
Then number 4, Herman Masaba as the Minister of Home Affairs.
Okay. Gaten's going to
Then
be very
the-
upset. Yeah, carry on.
Then the last one, the last one, Gaten Mackenzie as the Minister of Human Settlement.
Oh.
I think those patriots can make South Africa better.
All right, and no wonder you'd be the minister without portfolio, but I got that. You're the first one who's given that new cabinet. I'm sure it's a conversation we'd be having in the next few days as well. So thanks for the call. It's a nice,
All right,
it's a
thanks so much.
nice call. Absolutely right. Let's get other thoughts on the initial chat I had around with Lukhona Nguni. Here's a comment.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's Ify from Eden Glen in Edenville at work. Home with Gianni. But thanks for bringing Lukhona here. I like his ideas. Always his views is on point. Thanks, Ashraf. Have a good afternoon.
Well, I agree with you. I think, and you know what's interesting is that Lukhona's made it his task to know about all things MK. So I had lots of chats with him on air, and then clearly when we had the results center, the Rock, some off-air chats as well. Very fascinating person in terms of where we are. Right, some other thoughts, and this is an interesting one again about MK.
Ashraf is Mr. Nteta in East London. Look, Jabulani Khumalo miscalculated his moves. He was not advised properly. Jabulani Shandu handed the organization to Babu Umsholozi. And it was clear, as daylight. What he was trying to do did not succeed. He was getting all sort of advices from wrong people. Now he's out there in the cold. Now he has to face the consequences of what actually he has done. Look, MK is led by Babu Zuma, and then MK is a force to be reckoned with. So we cannot be sympathizing with Jabulani. He's got cases that are pending, that are being cooked against him already. We saw Duduzile on Twitter just now. He said that he might be actually launching a case against him for defamation. So, zizomkhalela bhuti kusazoba mnandi. Siyabonga baba.
Okay, got that. So there you are. I mean, again, interesting about miscalculation. Maybe, and I don't know enough about the person, but in the greater scheme of things, that party is run ideologically and, if not physically, by Jacob Zuma. I mean, that's really what it is. So in terms of the reference to Duduzile, well, Duduzile tweeted about and saying defamation case loading. Yeah, that story does not go away. Let me see if I've got another one, just around the government of national unity.
Good afternoon, Bishop Makwana from Leboahomu, Zone F. Ashraf, my analysis here is that the ANC wouldn't want to destroy the country and destroy its economy and collapse the rent. What they will do, they will bring in Steenhuisen as a speaker, Cyril as a president, deputy president, Chipolo Mashatile, Fabisa as the second deputy president, share the portfolios, then start a new government. The COSATU, the SACP, who are trying to divide us in this country, they will disregard them. Because even their members during the day of elections, they were not voting. They took it as a holiday. They were making price, saying that the ANC will win. Some of them voted with Jacob Zuma because they were in fear that Cyril will implement state capture report.
Okay, got that. I wonder whether, you're saying COSATU, SACP, they'll disregard them. If the ANC disregards them, they'll shed even more support then they've already shed to the MK party. I mean, I don't think they can afford that. They have to make a plan that's part of their own tripartite alliance. Whether that holds, in the next 5 years or so is another whole question completely. But thanks for those comments. I'll look at further comments as soon as I get a chance, both in text form, WhatsApp voice notes. Ideally, keep the WhatsApp voice notes like less than a minute, 30 seconds ideally, okay, because we can get more people in, right? And I'll get to some other calls too. But let's get to another issue that, well, it's really concerning if you're the family of two South African engineers who have been in Equatorial Guinea since February. So it's a good few months, right? In fact, let's find out the whole story as to what has happened, how did they end up there, and what happens next with them. Sean Murphy with me, the spokesperson for the Potgieter family. Sean, appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Ashraf, yes. Thank you for having me. Thanks for your guys' time as well.
Thank you. So help us understand what has happened. Why was this family, the Potgieter family, why are they in Equatorial Guinea, and what has happened since?
So, look, I represent obviously the Potgieter family, but I'll speak on behalf of Peter as well. Peter Haxam, who's also been detained in Equatorial Guinea.
Okay.
They work for a oil offshore company, SBM, which is so they really work offshore on the oil rigs, and they obviously go there on a 5-week stint. They're there for 5 weeks, and then they come back to South Africa, and then they go they're here for 5 weeks, and they go back again. So it's really their place of work, where they're working offshore in Equatorial Guinea.
Okay, and then in terms of the why, what has happened about, you said they detained, reason?
So, I mean, look, they were on their way back home after their 5-week stint, for rotation. And the evening, before they were to return back home, they were arrested at a hotel on trumped-up drug-related charges. This coincidentally happened, 2 days after South Africa had seized a luxury yacht and 2 villas of the vice president of Equatorial Guinea. So it's all coincidental, and that's why they're sitting in this prison at the moment, completely innocent. They shouldn't be there. They actually at the moment, I mean, they pawns in a tug of war between South Africa and Equatorial Guinea.
So you're saying it's because of South Africa. When I'm saying in the tug of war, that means they've been arrested because they're South African nationals, and that's the key factor.
That is, as far as we believe, is the key factor. Yes.
Okay. Are you in contact? Are you in contact with them? Are you able to or not?
We're not, unfortunately. They've been there for 16 months. It's actually been 16 months and 3 days now, and we've literally had 3 visits to them. 3 to Frick and 4 to Peter, and Peter only got the extra 1, and that was because he's got dual citizenship with with the UK. So the UK was able to arrange a visit as well. The last contact that we've had with them was in May. It was the 14th of May was the last contact that we've had with him. I mean, that's almost 3 months back.
Okay. In fact, I said since February, it's February 2023. So, okay, you've put that in perspective. It's another whole year longer than I thought. Where does South Africa and international relations fit into this?
Sorry, say again?
Where does South Africa's international relations lobbying to have them released fit into this? Because clearly South Africa's job would be to look after its citizens, right?
Absolutely. We would assume that, South Africa would be a lot more proactive in, trying to get their citizens back. Especially if you take into account, the circumstances under which they've been arrested, the charges that have been brought against them, the sentence that's been handed down. Everything just adds up that this is a political thing. The unfortunate thing is we haven't had enough contact with DIRCO, and trust me, that's not because of a lack of trying, but we haven't had enough contact with them to actually know, what it is that they are doing in order to try and bring our guys back. And I'll use a simple example. We know that Minister Naledi Pandor was there on the 5th and the 6th of May to actually go and visit, Equatorial Guinea. We haven't had any feedback from DIRCO as of yet, what the outcome was from that meeting. We are led to understand that she went there, amongst other things, was to obviously, to see if she could negotiate to bring our guys back.
So that does surprise me. I mean, so why would there be no contact? Why would you not have recourse to approach them and they approach you as the family representatives? It doesn't make much sense to me.
So we do. We approach them ongoing. We constantly send emails. There's actually a whole list of people that we try and reach out to ongoing. We try and set up meetings. We have had meetings with them, virtual meetings. I think we've had about 4 over the past 16 months. And the unfortunate thing is, each time out of those meetings, what comes out is that there isn't really much feedback. They're waiting for the mission in Equatorial Guinea to give them feedback. But yeah, I mean, not even DIRCO is able to secure visits to both, Peter and Frick.
Well, I'll tell you what, maybe we need to follow up with DIRCO as well, just to find out where they stand. If not today, well, maybe not today, but the next couple of days. It's going to be hectic with the election issues, but then maybe pretty soon. It's an issue that I think I'll certainly chat to my production team, Temba and Kisu, to sort that out or follow it up anyway. Sean Murphy, thanks for your time. Most appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Spokesperson for the Potgieter family. That's Frick Potgieter on the one end, and then Peter Haxum as well. 2 engineers, according to him, unlawfully held as state hostage on a trumped-up drug-related charge. But he believes it's linked to South Africa's position regarding some of the problems in that region in Equatorial Guinea. You know much about it. You certainly can add your comments 0614 104 107 via WhatsApp. We've got more to talk about, your calls and many other things that moves the national pulse in a moment.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, lots of people commenting in terms of voice notes. So here's another, and I think people are picking up on that first comment we had about from the caller from the Eastern Cape about his choice for the cabinet. Here's another.
Hi, Ashraf. This is Nontlantla from Frankfurt in the Northern Free State. Here are my views. Actually, for me, if I was a president, my cabinet, I think I will be taking Mackenzie, that guy from, I don't know which party is that, but is that one of Connie Kunene's party? I think this guy is the right person for the Department of Safety and Security. I think he's right, that guy. He must replace Peggy Ken. I think these illegal foreigners and everything, crime and everything, this guy is the right candidate. He can deal with this. Thank you very much.
All right, there you are, the right candidate took Gayton McKenzie. You clearly didn't vote for the party, I'm just saying, because you would have known the party name. But I get your point in terms of being the right man, whether he is the right man. Others have their own opinions about that. Just, that's that. Let's get on to other issues that I think are really important in terms of the build-up to that 5 p.m. press conference from the IFP. So from IFP, let's talk EFP. The spokesperson for the EFP is Leanne Matthys. Appreciate your time, Leanne. Hi.
EFP is we've got a new name, Ashraf.
Yeah. Did I say EFP? EFF. You see, it's the IFP that's confusing me all, right? Yeah. Well, do you blame me? I mean, there's like so many things happening every single day of the week. I can't cope. So EFF, to make it very clear. Good chatting to you. Let's talk about what's your party's position now as we get into just over 24 hours to that first sitting of Parliament.
Well, as our president had said in our press briefing after the election results, and also our DP has been retaliating, is that this whole government of national unity that the ANC is trying to sell to South Africa is something we're not going to participate in, particularly because the DA and the FF Plus is going to form part of it. So that's pretty much our position and what has been our position in that regard. Obviously, we will be going to Parliament on Friday to be sworn in, and we are quite happy to take the opposition benches if we have to and continue dynamically engaging for accountability and presenting bills to be passed in Parliament as we've been doing since 2014. So we've got no problem with that.
All right. Now we do know that lots of parties are having conversations. I spoke to a few yesterday. Others are meeting today, understanding to try and sort out a deal. Do I take it that because of your position regarding the ANC's position potentially partnering with the DA, as you've said that the EFF has ruled itself out of that collaboration if that happens, that means you're not part of any conversations right now?
Well, we have obviously engaged with the ANC, but we're not with the DA, and we've made our position clear that there's not going to be any collision or any arrangement that we are going to have if the DA and the FF Plus is involved. And you must also remember they were the ones that John Steenhuisen, after he was elected as whatever position he holds there in the DA, was the one who declared the EFF as enemy number one. So, we're just returning the favor now, really.
Okay.
That's pretty much our position. We haven't changed yet.
I hear you. Look, many people listening on the channel or the station certainly will disagree with many of the DA policies. In fact, they will disagree with the EFF as well as the ANC and so on, right? Isn't it, we know the reality is that no party's got this mandate to govern on their own, right? Now, notwithstanding your views about the DA, isn't there a position to say, hold it, let's do what is right to ensure that the country and governance of the country holds, notwithstanding that you differ with them vehemently, as you would often differ with the ANC?
I mean, that perspective really bothers me because no one would ever go and ask the Jews, for example, to go and would you now, for the sake of moving forward, go and sing Kumbaya with the Germans after they were slaughtered during the Holocaust. So, Asha, this thing of Africans just always been forgiving. I mean, we had an apartheid. We had a dignity of Africans being stripped away. We still don't own our land. We still don't own our economy. And now we must go and sing Kumbaya with the same party who has its roots very deeply grounded in the atrocities that were committed against South Africa. And they have not changed. Because you can see they go and burn their flag and tell South Africans that if they're not part of it, as white people, there is no hope for South Africa.
Okay, so having
they
said
are at
that,
the center. Their policies are neoliberal. They do not want to expropriate land without compensation. They do not see the need for us to be able to close the inequality gap here in South Africa. And we're not going to go into any cahoots with a party that has no interest except to drive the interest of white monopoly capital and whiteness in particular.
All right, point made. Let's move on. So if you've taken the stance that you have, right, and this is the bigger issue, we know that the MK are still deciding what they're going to do next. So at this point in time, they're not in Parliament, not for now, right? That clearly the EFF has a position in terms of where South Africa is and where it needs to be, right? Are you not inadvertently pushing then the ANC to do a deal with a party that would then churn out policies, because there has to be compromises in the deal, policies that are contrary to what the EFF wants, what you think is in the best interest of the country?
It's literally 5 years, and the ANC is obviously just starting to cover up their graves now. And if they're going to go that route, there's nothing we can do as the EFF. But we are not going to go into cahoots at all in any way, shape or form with anything that resembles that DA and the FF Plus. And we can't be held accountable for decisions that the ANC has made. In any case, that Ramaphosa is literally the little puppy dog of white monopoly capital. So the agenda of what they had since post-apartheid and since we started, supposedly the democratic government has always been in place. I mean, when you look at the history of organizations or liberation organizations, they have a time span. And white monopoly capital were way ahead in their planning, so they knew that at some point the ANC is going to drop. There's going to be 40%. And obviously, I mean, the EFF has played a huge role in doing that from 2014, our stance on what we did in 2016 to make sure that they do drop below 40%.
Okay, I got that. So initially you made your views about, you as the party made the views about the potential ANC relationship with the DA, and I think since then nothing's happened because you guys are poles apart. But if, for example, at the 11th hour the ANC comes to you today and says, hold it, we're not going to do anything more with the DA, we're going to talk to you, would then the EFF then make a deal with what you call the puppy dog?
As long as that FF Plus and the the DA is not part of it. I mean, we have said off the cuff, initially the president said that in our post briefing that we will talk to the ANC, we'll talk to the MK, and we will talk to black parties, but we are not going to be led by the nose by any apartheid party.
Even if he's the puppy dog as you describe him.
I beg your pardon?
Even if Ramaphosa is the puppy dog as you describe him.
He is, but we can deal with that. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He is the puppy dog, but that can be dealt with.
Okay. Just the last thing, I understand that the EFF intends putting up people.
And it's not just a puppy dog, he's like a little chihuahua actually upright. But
okay.
What was your question?
Got that. We got 30 seconds. Who are you putting up for election on Friday?
Oh, you will know. We'll process that and we'll let you know on Friday. You will see.
That's where we're going to leave it. Thank you for your time. Leanne Matthys,
right.
the EFF spokesperson. And this, of course, is significant in terms of the comments ahead of the IFP press conference, which we will take live just around 5 o'clock. Okay, so it does suggest, my understanding is that the EFF has put a position together. It means that even now at the 11th hour, they don't have a deal with the ANC. Otherwise, Leanne would have said something very, very different. So they put together a position of no DA. That hasn't changed, which then suggests, if you had to be speculating in terms of where the arrangement will be for the ANC to get to what they need, it is 50 plus 1. Let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Mudupi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. The top story is Sawa Kokta minister visits tornado-hit Tongat, and the Krechka murder case is postponed. Very good afternoon. Cooperative Governance Minister Thembing Kadimeng says that 280 million rand is needed to rebuild damaged infrastructure in areas hit by last week's tornado in the north of Durban. She has classified them as national disaster areas. The minister visited residents in Otongati, one of the hardest hit areas, where at least 12 people died. Authorities say initial assessments show that over 7,000 houses have been damaged and at least 17,000 people affected. Minister Kadimeng explains.
Meaning then that government at a national level will collaborate with the province and the municipality in trying to bring people's life into normality. There's quite a lot that needs to happen. One, you will see some of the areas where people have built is not actually a formal settlement. Which means the people need to be moved into the phase 2 of what they call, I think, Greyland area, which has a phase 1 and a phase 2, which then needs services, infrastructure that needs to be built. We're looking at around 280 million or so just to put the infrastructure on jointly at the national with human settlement as well, and then the building of the houses.
The World Health Organization has confirmed that there is no registered treatment for the monkeypox disease in South Africa. One of the 5 cases reported in the country, one person died at a Joburg hospital on Monday. The health department says the disease spreads mostly among men who have sex with other men. The WHO's Fabian Ndenzako says symptoms include a rash, headache, and body aches. He says they are working around the clock to make sure that treatment is available in South Africa.
We are working very closely with the ministry team and also partners to make sure that as much as possible, as soon as possible, we get the drugs available to the patients. As we speak, 10 doses have been packed, just waiting shipment from Geneva to here. So we're working with the team to make sure the paperwork is actually done and this shipment can actually be available. But also more other doses to be ready.
The murder case against the Czech fugitive and alleged underworld kingpin Radovan Krechka has been postponed to the 5th of July in the High Court in Joburg. He's facing charges of murder, conspiracy to commit murder, robbery with aggravating circumstances, and possession of an unlicensed firearm and ammunition. The case is in relation to the 2013 murder of Bassam Issa, a Lebanese national and an alleged criminal associate of Kreshka. Sashin Naidu has more.
After waiting for several hours at the High Court in Johannesburg, Kretscher made a brief appearance in the dock just after 2 p.m. This was due to negotiations between his legal team and the state in regards to an application for him to be allowed to procure the services of a private medical doctor. According to his legal team, the Czech fugitive isn't getting adequate medical attention in prison, resulting in his health deteriorating. An agreement was then made for Kretscher to be examined by a DCS doctor this afternoon to determine exactly what treatment he claims to be in need of. Sasha Naidu, SABC News, at the High Court in Johannesburg.
Eskom says it has replaced over 400 electricity transformers damaged by network overloading since January this year. This comes as firefighters battled the blaze at a Eskom substation in Zola, Soweto this morning. This has left a dozen areas without electricity, and it is not clear when power will be restored. The cause of the fire is yet to be determined. Eskom spokesperson Obri Sambo has urged customers to report illegal connections.
Electricity theft is wide-ranging and includes illegal connections, network equipment theft, vandalism, meter bypass and tampering, as well as unauthorized network operations and purchasing electricity from illegal vendors. Overloaded transformers as a result of electricity theft present a serious risk to human life. The time, funds and manpower used to replace these transformers could have been utilized to improve the reliability of our network, electrify more communities, improve the experience of our paying customers and create more jobs.
And the founder of the NGO Gift of the Givers, Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, has called on the ANC to continue to fight for the liberation of Palestine once a new government comes into power. He says South Africa's legal action against Israel at the International Court of Justice was a monumental moment in the fight for human rights globally. Suleiman has called on the ANC to partner with other political parties that will help to continue to fight for the freedom of Palestine.
Direct call to the ANC, very careful about what coalitions, what partnerships we make, because we cannot stop this process. There has been no government, no institution more brave than what South Africa has done. And a call to the liberation movements in Parliament to stop fighting, stop having egos, and to stand together as liberation movements in the interests of the people of our country, the continent, and the world.
The top story at 4 o'clock, Cooperative Governance Minister Thembing Kadimeng says 280 million rand is needed to rebuild damaged infrastructure in areas hit by last week's tornado in the north of Durban. Greg has your headlines at past. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
Coming up in your sports, Carlo Alcaraz to team up with Rafa Nadal for Olympics, and Chiefs might have to pay 2 million rand or more a month to Lua Musimane. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
21 South has been very heavy today on the run from Pretoria down towards the airport into the Clayville roadwork section. Complicating matters is a stationary truck in the mix as well. So if you're on your way to the airport, just make sure you've got plenty of time to get through at the worst today with an additional lane closure. It was well over an hour, probably an hour and 20 minutes to get through the single lane section, but it stays very heavy today. The N3 from Marlborough Drive all the way down to Van Buren is busy. There's a crash coming out of Santon on Grayston Drive at the Mike 1 Highway. So there's a pushback through Catherine and back towards Rivonia Street. Looking very busy leaving Santon on that Grayston Drive option today. Durban, the N2 northbound, busy from Kumashi right through to Sabaya. You've got the roadworks up towards Gateway queuing things up, and then a breakdown after that through the roadworks towards Sabaya. So 2 queues to work through. It's almost actually a joined up queue. Cape Town, stationary vehicle, usual spot. N1 out of town at Plattercliff Hill. Traffic pushing back through towards the Century City and Canal Walk area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation. This year, we are celebrating Youth Month under the theme, Actively Embracing the Socio-Economic Gains of Our Democracy. As we commemorate the massacre of school children during the Soweto uprising of 1976, we also celebrate the liberation of our beloved country. Hashtag Freedom30. Hashtag Youth Month.
Top Sport on SAFM.
Exactly 14 years ago, I was sitting at FNB Stadium and watching a match in the opening game of the World Cup 2010. Probably my most famous piece of commentary ever. Where were you when this happened? Shabalala! 50th cap! Shabalala scores! Absolutely unbelievable! And South Africa score the opener at World Cup 2010. You've got to pinch yourself to believe this. Great memories there from World Cup 2010, 14 years ago, almost the exact minute when that happened. I've still got goosebumps thinking about that particular event.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, I'm reflecting on Michael Abramson's radio commentary of that game, the Bafana-Mexico game. And the answer, Michael, where was I? I was at the stadium. I was one of those privileged people to be at the stadium and seeing that magnificent goal. But sadly, a great goal of the tournament, but we didn't win the World Cup. We didn't win that game either, right? And got knocked out. So, 14 years ago, so much to think about. Ifs, whats, buts, and maybes in terms of how we should have prepared that team differently. Just something to consider. Top Sport with Michael Abramson, 6 to 7. No, have I got it right? 7 to 8 tonight. Listen out for that. Let's get to another important issue. The Minister of Health, Dr. Joe Pantler, held a media briefing earlier today to update the public on the outbreak of Mpox disease and outline plans by the department in collaboration with various stakeholders. This is to curb the further spread of the disease and to prevent, obviously, people dying. The minister said 5 cases have been confirmed in South Africa, with 2 of those cases in Gauteng, 3 in KwaZulu-Natal, sadly 1 death so far confirmed. And there was a patient that died at the Tembisa Hospital on Monday, right? Let's find out more about what's the position and where to from here with Wayne Ramakrishna, who's the Deputy Director in the Department of Health. Wayne, appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your listeners as well.
Thank you. So picking up on my intro regarding what the Minister has said, what more can you tell us regarding the disease and clearly that issue to spread, to curb the spread of the disease?
Yeah, thanks. It's an important question. Yeah, so monkeypox, as it used to be called, is now called Mpox. So it's a viral disease, and it's called an orthopox virus. And initially, it was spread from animals to humans in certain parts of Central Africa and so on. But during this latest outbreak, the spread is mainly human to human through close contact. So, the main spread is through close contact. And also, it's implicated during sexual transmission, So, basically, very close contact, but it can be transmitted less frequently through other means, through healthcare workers or people looking after patients, or even through bedding that has the scabs that are on the beddings, while cleaning and so on. So mainly it is through very close contact and mainly sexual contact at the moment.
Okay.
That we're seeing in South African setting.
What about, we speak about the curbing, so I understand how it can spread. I mean, do I take it that it's reasonably controlled, or are you concerned about that?
Okay. It is controllable, definitely. And the WHO is trying to put emphasis on the global eradication in the next 2 years. So definitely control is possible and eradication is possible. And in our setting, it is very important that people who may have contact with confirmed cases or suspected cases, they seek advice from the healthcare facility so that they can be followed up for the next 21 days to ensure that symptoms do not appear. And if symptoms do appear, then it's a matter of monitoring them to make sure they are kept healthy. And if there is treatment needed, then they can get the correct treatment so that, we ensure the safety. So there was one patient that passed away, sadly, and this was mainly because the patient turned up quite late for medical attention, So it is advisable that people look after their health. They know what Mpox is all about, and they seek medical attention as soon as possible rather than leaving it for later on.
Well, certainly. So here's the thing. How would we know? What are the symptoms we need to be looking out for?
Okay, this is a viral disease. So you would have like a fever, but mainly the striking feature is a rash. Okay, and the rash would look similar to chickenpox. But I must add that there could be other viruses or diseases that would appear with a rash. Therefore, it's important to seek medical attention, and your healthcare provider will be able to differentiate whether it is due to another disease or it is chickenpox, or if they suspect Mpox. During the interviewed patients, then we'll take a sample and send it to laboratory for confirmation.
You said earlier on that the patient who died sadly, got treatment too late. Again, how would one know, in terms of how quickly one should go for treatment?
Okay. As soon as the symptoms appear, you need to seek medical attention. Patients that were infected so far, all of them were HIV positive. So that is also another feature because, your immune system is compromised, and therefore you need to be extra cautious when you are ill and so on, when you're getting infections. You need to be extra cautious. And then another important issue is that patients who are HIV positive, they need to ensure that they get the proper treatment so that their CD4 counts or the level of immunity is maintained at a safe level.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to tell us that we need to know, in terms of comorbidities or anything else that you think we need to be knowing?
Yeah, just to emphasize again, people need to know the symptoms of Mpox, and as soon as it appears, you need to seek medical attention as soon as possible, rather than leaving it for later on.
All right. Wayne Ramakrishna, thanks for your time. Deputy Director in the Department of Health. So there you are, one person dying from Mpox, but it's been relatively contained, but it's really up to us to ensure that it remains contained. So he talks about a rash as the first point of concern, if you have that, right? Let's get some calls, which I'll do, and I'll also look at again on any of the issues. Many people commenting about the cabinet already, sort of jumping the gun. But feel free to do just that in terms of your choices. But perhaps here's the one that for me is key to understanding the mood of the nation today, and what moves the national pulse, which is what type of deal do you want to happen for that first sitting of Parliament? I mean, you have your own thoughts. Other parties have expressed what they've said. What do you want? Not what you think will happen. What do you want to come out of any potential deals from parties ahead of that first sitting of Parliament on Friday?
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, let's get to some of the callers. CP, we're in Mayerton. Hello.
Hi, sir. How are you, man?
Yeah, good talking to you. Thank you, man. Right, go ahead.
You know what I'm thinking, Ashraf? Because everybody wants to run this country. Can't we vote again? what the law says.
That's like playing a replay, like a cup final. Our team lost to say, let's just play again, man.
Yeah, let's vote again. So that you can take out all these criminals like the ANC. Because it shows now people don't want them anymore. That is why they didn't get...
I don't know if it shows they don't want. I think 40% of all the people who voted chose one party and no other party comes close to that 40%.
Yeah, but if we vote again, you'll see, you'll fall, like big time, you'll fall. It shows now people don't want them anymore, say.
Well, okay, got that. I tell you what, my understanding is that if Parliament, government is failed, it does not form in terms of governance on Friday, and then a week later, then you could have a situation of an election in 90 days' time. I don't think the country wants that. I don't think the country needs that. In spite of what you're saying, CP, where it's not really what you really want, and the costs are enormous. And it also means the whole country's on hold, effectively, for another 3 months. Let's get another call. Thanks for that one. Dintwa in Tabancho. Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, Dintwa, you're live on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, you're speaking to Fortune from Pietermaritzburg.
Is that Fortune? All right. My apology, Fortune. Go ahead, Fortune. Comment.
Yeah. No, my brother, I'm so proud of the decision of the EFF. I'm not ashamed for voting EFF. Because what they mean, they really mean it. They don't change the position for the people of government. They just making their commitment, and now we are so proud of them.
But they have changed their positions before. You know that they have done business with the EFF, with the DA before. They have. They formed, Ikuruleni comes to mind. There's been other deals they've made. They have. So it's not like they've been absolutely principled. We won't even ever talk to them again. They have spoken.
Yes, they're speaking with the DA in the local government when they were negotiating after the election. But this one is different because it's a national, this one. So that's what makes a big difference.
Okay, and you see the difference there between provincial and... I know the obvious difference is there, but I think principally the impact on how it impacts society is, for me, very much the same. But that's how I see it. Thanks for that call. That's Fortune in Pietermaritzburg. In fact, I want to see if we can get to Dintwa and others. We're going to go to... Right, we may take some WhatsApp voice notes. Many people commenting. Floyd, Minister of Finance. Lots of calls for him to be the Minister of Finance. Will that happen? We'll see.
Mama Kiti, I heard Rand Water talking on the radio about how dangerous it is for people to encroach on their pipeline servitude.
Yes, those high-pressure Rand Water pipelines are under the ground distributing megalitres of water. When people build on top of the pipeline, Rand Water is unable to conduct maintenance on the pipeline, which has a negative impact on water provision. Pipelines can burst without warning. People could get seriously injured or worse.
Yes, people can die from a bursting pipe. That is why people need to understand that Rand Water servitude is where a Rand Water pipeline is located. If we build our houses or businesses on a Rand Water servitude, then we are encroaching on that servitude. They say if communities want to know whether they've encroached over servitudes, they should look for the Rand Water beacons.
The beacons indicate the presence of Rand Water pipelines under the ground. They're rectangular, made of concrete, are painted either white or blue, and have the Rand Water logo on them.
Let's take a walk around our area to see if there are any Rand Water beacons so that we can also tell the neighbors.
Rand Water, celebrating 120 years of existence and still finding new ways to provide clean, portable bulk water.
The Trilidor Ultimate Big Blue Sale is now on. Get amazing discounts on the best security South Africans trust. With over 50 franchises across the country, you can always find a security expert near you. So call 0861 Trilidor or visit trilidor.co.za today. Terms and conditions apply.
When the 5 years on your Audi Freeway plan comes to an end, what's next for your Audi journey? Extend your cover with the Audi Freeway Plan Extension. Get uninterrupted service excellence and continued peace of mind for up to 15 years or 300,000 kilometers. Or choose Audi Value Service, a convenient and affordable plan which covers your servicing needs over 2 years or 30,000 kilometers. Keep your Audi with Audi and experience value beyond tomorrow. Visit audi.co.za to find out more.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Are you seriously saying in that statement that if the DA occupied, the position of Speaker, apartheid would come back?
I think there has been inequalities, for example, in the Western Cape, where the DA has been dominant and has been influential, partly because they managed to reach that particular position. And based upon our own lived experience in this part of the country, we have basically seen in terms of what they rule. have done. In addition to that, of course, is also the Zionist funding that seems to decide on the future of our region, and that is also a concern, because outside interference is something that we don't want. We need us all to sit around the table and decide the future of our country together and not by others from outside.
Professor Mohammed Harun, thank you very much indeed, CEO of the political party El Jama. They're opposed to a government of national unity with the ANC and the DA.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes, 6 to 9 a.m. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So that's two parties we know for absolutely sure, right? The EFF, besides the MK, EFF and Al Jama. And we also know yesterday, in terms of conversation I had with the representative from Rising Mzansi, that in fact they'd be part of conversations. Not saying agreement, they'd be part of conversations with the ANC, and that may be happening right away. Let's talk about AfriForum and issues about municipalities and electricity increases that should concern you. AfriForum has filed an urgent court bid to prevent municipalities from implementing NERSA's approved electricity tariff hikes. The group claims that the councils failed to conduct cost of supply studies. Why is that important? Let's find out. Morne Mostert with me, Manager of Local Government Affairs at AfriForum. Morne, I appreciate your time. Hi.
Good evening, Asha.
Evening, afternoon. You see, when you have no lights, it is evening very, very quickly because it gets very dark. I understand that, which is very topical in terms of what we're talking about now, right? Tell me what's the reason for you to stop municipal electricity hikes, and you have a specific reason for that.
Yes, so just take a step back to 2022, where there was an urgent court interdict that was granted that had to ensure NASA implement steps against municipalities that do not have these cost of supply studies, but it gave them a year to comply with this piece of legislation. The reason why you need a cost of supply study is for you to be able to account what the actual costs are for you delivering electricity. All of the costs should be put together, and then you can show that amounts to NASA. But what has happened is for the past decade, none of these studies have been handed in, or rather, 7 months back, there was only 2 municipalities that actually complied with this prerequisite. And for years and years on end, we have seen percentile additions to the electricity tariff, and it has basically run down to a fourfold increase for the past decade. So AfriForum is saying NASA cannot allow municipalities just to keep getting increases when they're blatantly not complying with the relevant legislation. And AfriForum's court case is forward-looking to say if we stop them from getting a tariff increase now, it will energize the municipalities to actually start complying with legislation, and more importantly, for them to be able to open up the figures for public participation, that we can see what is actually going on with the selling of electricity within municipalities. And that is one measure, and we can hold the municipality accountable, and for them just to be transparent about the cost of electricity for that municipality.
Well, I think your use of the words and the municipalities will be energized is noted, just to tell you, right? Having said that, do I take it that the court order comes, the urgent court bid rather, comes after AfriForum infactably spoke to the various municipalities?
So we requested, in October last year, NASA sent a specific letter to all of the municipalities reminding them that they had to comply with with the cost of supply study. So we were obviously in favor of that, so we left it. But what happened was in January the 29th, without us knowing, NASA wrote to municipalities saying, rather, if you just fill in this form, we will give you a tariff increase, which is not only against the court order that was obtained, but is woefully irregular given the legislative mandate that there is from NASA to actually enforce this legislation upon municipal licensees. So at the time when we found out about these different letters, or rather the last letter that we sent, we wrote urgently to NASA to help for them to explain to us what exactly is going on here, what is the amount of cost of supplies that NASA has received in the past year, and NASA decided to stay silent on the issue. Then AfriForum had no other decision but to take the matter to court.
Okay, and to end up, in terms of those few municipalities that provided the cost of supply, right? Did you find that those cost of supplies showed that their charge was reasonable or unreasonable?
Well, what we did see is that the overall management of the municipalities that had cost of supplies are to such an extent much better than most municipalities in South Africa. We also see that those municipalities that we have seen have cost of supplies has requested a lower increase than the proposed the 12% increase that Eskom had. So we are seeing that these municipalities are actually truthful about the specific figures, and they are, let's say, they are more rationality. They're more rational with the amounts that they request from them.
Okay, that's where we leave it. Morne Mostert, the manager of local government affairs at AfriForum. The context to that is that AfriForum now filing an urgent court bid to prevent municipalities from implementing this as approved electricity tariff hikes. Maybe they're speaking on your behalf. What do you make of that? Here's one that's interesting. Good day. The voter from Kempton Park here. I'd like to see the ANC stop stealing all the money. The DA to stop catering for only the rich or the white people, and the rest to make sure of this regard. So you never put a name. Okay, thought-provoking as always, and we always get that on the show. Across the country, people have strong views on a range of matters. I wonder what you make about young people following that entrepreneurial route, and whether entrepreneurship is the way to go and whether they've been succeeding, or what more needs to be happening around that. We'll talk about that coming up around 4:45, so do not miss that. Let's get the news headlines now. It's 4:30. Is early today. Greg Host.
Thank you and good afternoon to you, Ashraf. In your headlines, Eskom says it's replaced over 400 electricity transformers damaged by network overloading since January. The Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs says 280 million rand is needed to rebuild damaged infrastructure in areas hit by last week's tornado north of Durban. And police in Indian-administered Kashmir say 2 suspected militants and a paramilitary police officer have been killed in a clash near the frontier with Pakistan. I'll have all those stories and more at 5 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
And very heavy coming out of Sandton today. A collision on Grayston Drive at the Mike 1 Highway. That traffic's backed all the way through Catherine and right back to around Rivonia Road. Central Sandton really sort of battling along. It's a very busy afternoon in there, particularly for motorists wanting to get out towards the Mike 1 Highway. It's just been a crash on the M1 North near Old Joburg Road. That traffic was already busy anyway from Buccleuch through to Samran. It'll now extend delays up towards that crash scene. And the R21 has a broken down truck and roadworks between Nel Napiers Drive and Olifantsfontein. So it stays heavy. Durban, long queues on the way to the airport today, queuing up from Kumashu Highway to Gateway through the works, and then a breakdown further up by Sibaya. So basically from Kumashu to Sibaya, it's heavy. Breakdown on Pietermaritzburg's N3, Durban bound at New England Road. That's a heavy push back towards Chota Motala. That looks quite heavy. And Cape Town, fairly a decent sort of start to this afternoon's rush hour in terms of traffic coming out of the CBD. The main delay seems to be Marine Drive, which is badly backed up through Pardon Island towards Boundary Road and Lagoon Beach. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
As we talk sports, you often talk about like, hey, that's my man or that's my bra. Now, maybe Nadal was my bra before, but I like Alcaraz. But
right?
you have a thought about him, so go ahead and tell us.
I have a thought or two about both of them, Rafa Nadal and Carlos Alcaraz. They are going to team up to play doubles at this year's Olympic Games in Paris. Nadal won an Olympic gold back in 2008, but the Paris Games will be Alcaraz's first. Nadal's participation was up in the air with the 14 times French Open champion still not at his best following injuries, but national team coach David Ferrer says that the 38-year-old would team up with a 21-year-old and he's up and ready and all set to compete at the Olympics. In football, Mamelodi Sundowns ladies will open their Women's Cup campaign against host Kansas City Current following the draw for the 2024 edition of the tournament that will be played in August in the USA. Banyana Bastille will take to the field at 3 a.m. in the morning South African time, and the winners are set to face off in the final on the Sunday, the 18th of August, while the third place playoff will kick off at midnight on Saturday. Meanwhile, Zambia national team captain Barbara Banda has been named the National Women's Soccer League Player of the Month since joining Orlando Pride at the end of March. Banda has scored 8 goals and 2 assists in 7 matches, and she has also tied her teammate Marta's record that was set in 2017 by scoring 3 braces in May. In golf, the US Open prides itself in being golf's toughest test, and Tiger Woods says that he's expecting another war this week at Pinehurst. Only 4 players have ended under par in 3 previous US Opens held at the North Carolina resorts. And this week's 124th staging of golf's second oldest major looks set to be equally as challenging, with the speed of the upturned saucer greens a huge talking point. Meanwhile, former champion John Rahm has withdrawn from this week's US Open due to a foot injury. In rugby, coach Dobson says that the Stormers have given Hachiba Daimani their blessings to take up a life-changing opportunity as the loose forward is linked with a move to France. Daimani is among 15 players confirmed to be leaving the team at the end of the season. The 26-year-old have been linked with a move to the top 14 Giants Racing 92, who also are contracted or have contracted Sia Kolisi. Then finally, in the business of sports, it seems like Kaizer Chiefs, if they want Pitso Mosimane, they might have to cough up around 2 million rand monthly salary, and this is because it was revealed in court that Mosimane used to earn a staggering 1.55 million rand as a Sundowns coach. But the big question is, do Kaizer Chiefs really want Pitso Mosimane as their coach or not?
I think 2 questions I've got. One is 1.5 million for a coach of that stature staggering or not? I'd argue differently, because I think he won everything with Sundowns.
Yeah. I mean, but that was back then in 2020.
Right.
So maybe now. So are you saying that 2 million rand is not enough for
it's all relative to how much he delivers, right? And I mean,
of course.
I made the point, and I've often said so, what's the difference between Kaizer Chiefs and Manchester United? And I kept quiet. And they both have, they are potentially the best supported clubs in their countries, probably the richest as well. Some argue without the Sundowns factor, but certainly Chiefs are fallen giants, and they need to come back quickly. And if they can get a debt cert, then that's more than 2 million rands a month.
But I mean, we wouldn't know if he would work. Remember, there's a couple of coaches who I thought, or who I still think are great coaches. For example, Gavin Hunt is a great coach. I thought he would help Chiefs.
Well, if you left it to me to make one decision only from all the coaches in South Africa, if I was in Europe, I'd say Pep Guardiola. You get my point?
Yeah.
Like a dead cert. So if you say back a winning horse for now, ignore the money part, I'd go Pitso Mosimane.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. That said, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour. For SAFM Sport, I'm Tumin Kabele.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
You know, it's certainly economic issues. Someone saying, will there be an economic update on Friday because of you know what? Well, we'll talk about that later. For now, we have Makwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Good chatting to you as always. Let's talk about SPAR's mixed results, right?
Yeah. Afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to the listeners. Yes, mixed performance, and despite that challenging environment, and Ashraf, all their regions have been dealing with inflationary cost pressures and also prolonged higher interest rates that placing pressure on consumers and businesses alike. And this coupled with problems with the SAP software rollout and also that failed expansion into the Polish market continue to affect the group. And remember, the Polish business is is now considered a discontinued operations. And Tops, remember this is their liquor business, benefited from the Easter long weekend. And Build It, their building materials business, sales were flat, reflecting a subdued construction industry. Group turnover up 7.9%, but profits, as headline earnings per share, down 7.6%. Not surprising that we are not getting any interim dividend. And Ashraf Shoprite continues to be the biggest retailer, followed by Spar, Pick n Pay, then Woolworths. But market participants reacted positively as the share price is up a whopping 12%. And we also had the likes of Motors. Remember, these guys, they own car dealerships, and the South African trading environment remained challenging, and that has been because of uncertainty created by the elections, high interest rates, high fuel prices, high energy costs, and that put a strain on consumer disposable income, and the higher than normal vehicle and parts price inflation, exacerbated by the impact of the weaker rand, negatively impacted affordability. And we've seen the oversupply of vehicles is moderating. However, additional discounts which are continuing to generate vehicle sales are negatively impacting their margins, and the net debt is decreasing, and that is due to declining inventory levels, and that has been happening since July 2023, and also a decline when it comes to vehicles for hire, and that is due to reduced seasonal demand. And their profits as headline earnings per share expected to decrease by a whopping 35%.
You have a take on local and global markets?
Yeah, we saw China's inflation. It was soft inflation data, but unfortunately it didn't do much to lift market sentiments. So China's consumer price gains held above zero, while the factory gate prices remained stuck in deflation, and that itself is fueling concerns over this persistently weak demand. And the focus then shifted to the US consumer inflation and interest rate decision, and this double whammy of upcoming events kept market participants on the edge. That's early in the session, and we know that the US Central Bank must gain conviction that inflation is firmly going towards their target, that is before they can cut interest rates. And the much awaited US CPI was cooler than expected. That was also an encouraging sign for the Fed officials, meaning a September rate cut, Ashraf, is back in play, and we saw stocks jumping, yields and dollar falling, and locally market participants continue to watch the developments relating to the formulation of the government of national unity, and the dollar falling from recent highs, and also firmer commodity prices that helped the rand to gain some ground. And oil prices are getting a lift from a cooling US inflation, extending gains after that US crude inventories contracted more than expected. On itself is an indication of some demand. Oil, as we're talking, is up 1.3% at $83 a barrel, and that struggling US dollar after cooler than expected inflation is making the yellow metal more affordable to holders of other currencies. Gold is up 0.5% at 2,327. Platinum is up 0.3% at 964, and then we see the DAX is up 1.5%, CAC up 1%, FTSE up 0.8%, the Dow is up 0.6%, S&P up 1.3%, with the JSE up 1.5%. Ashraf, our resources are doing most of the heavy lifting as they are up 2%, financials are up 1.4%, industrials up 1%, and the rand is doing okay, as we said earlier, 1847 against the US dollar, 2371 against the pound, and 2001 against the euro.
And that's it for today. Thanks for your time, Markwe. We will chat tomorrow. Let's pick up some calls as well on a range of issues. So we do now have Dintwa. Dintwa in Tabancho, hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Good talking to you. Go ahead, Dintwa.
No, well, two issues. First issue is the EFF. EFF, they are part of the parliamentary system in South Africa, and they have agreed, or they are in agreement with the Constitution of the South Africa, and the Constitution that enjoins us as citizens of South Africa, that South Africa belongs to us all. And their stance of saying that they won't work with the apartheid people. I don't know where are apartheid people, but they should check that if they are taking that position, are they not bringing us or throwing us back to the system that we fought and defeated? I don't know, but I'm sure they will answer. I don't dispute their stance on the policies, because even the Black Party, they can give on policies. But to say now this nation or these people, we are not going to work with them. And the other thing, they must tell us, don't they have whites as members in their party? And now how are they treating those whites if they say they won't work with whites?
Okay.
And the second thing.
All right, quickly, yeah.
Yeah, on the coalition, I think coalition will work for us, because each and every party will be taking care or observing what the other party is doing. So the coalition government, it's my thinking that it will serve us best.
All right.
It will work.
Observing is one thing, it's like VAR, but can they decide who makes the decisions? That's really the big problem. Dinchwa, thanks for that. I think in terms of the EFF, it's an interesting issue. I mean, first of all, they're saying principally they will not work with this, white racist party. They have worked with them before, and that white racist party, in inverted commas, their position hasn't shifted in 5 years. So they have worked with them before. That's the one thing, right? So why change now? Number two, you may argue with the DA about their transformation policies. You can argue. I can argue with them as well. But there's nothing in their policies, my understanding, that talks back about an apartheid state. They don't do that. Okay, because it's not allowed in this country. So they can't go back to say, we are hearkening back for a whites only South Africa. It's not allowed. It won't happen, right? So there's contradictions within that. But the point, and please listen to the podcast that I had with Leah and Matesh. I think it's interesting because they are saying on that basis, they won't deal with them. I've argued the point that in fact, what the DA is doing is they're pushing the ANC to do a deal with the DA anyway, right? Is that good for South Africa if you so disagree with the DA? Interesting thought there. Let's get another comment. Patrick in Pietermaritzburg. Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Ashraf. I'm not happy the fact that Imtiaz Suleiman came on the radio and voiced his opinion. He's not a politician, Ashraf.
So what do you mean you're not happy he came on the radio?
No, because he says that the parties that get together must go with ANC because they're supporting Hamas, this terrorist organization. I don't agree with this. I mean, this guy, he's trying to promote Islamic ideology in an indirect way, Ashraf.
Well, look, first of all, whatever your feelings about him or my feelings about him or anybody else's feelings, he came on the radio, he was on the news bulletin, and because he's an important figure in the country. So whether you agree with him, Julius Malema.
No, Ashraf, he's not a politician. He might be doing a lot of good with his gift of the givers, but it doesn't give him the platform. This man is indirectly promoting Islamic ideology. We're not stupid, right. Ashraf.
Okay, no, all I'm saying, Patrick, I didn't put him on, I didn't speak to him. What I'm trying to tell you is many people in the country believe that his voice is important, whether you agree with him or not. And that comment was carried on the news. So you may disagree with him, and that's fine. Obviously, you're entitled to an opinion. But what you and I both can't say is like, we mustn't hear his voice because he's an important figure in the country, just like 20 other politicians that I disagree with completely. And not just politicians, other activists that I disagree with. And we give them a space as we've done every day, including yesterday. Thanks for that, Patrick. Appreciate it. There we are, Patrick, with his thoughts. Certainly a no to Imtiaz Suleiman and his position. We'll get to many other calls. I want to get to as many as possible. By the way, you know that the IFP are having a press conference at 5 o'clock. Here's a question to you. What do you think they're going to say at that presser? What are they going to say? We're going to cover it live, and then we will also have comment on that immediately. But ahead of that press conference at 5, what do you think they're going to say in terms of, obviously, the issues of coalitions or government of national unity? I wonder. Okay, it does suggest, based upon the conversations we had with the EFF spokesperson, that there's no deal between the ANC and the EFF at the moment, which then leaves the ANC with very limited options to form a government. It's the DA and a whole lot of smaller parties, isn't it? as well as the IFP, so you can work out the maths. Let's talk about youth and entrepreneurship. Very important right after this.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, so, in the build-up to June 16th, and let's be fair, in many ways, the election this year and the fact that we've had coalition debates since then has, in many ways, clouded the important issue of the space of youth in South Africa. Probably we don't even have enough conversations about the youth leaders that are emerging to lead the country on various platforms. But the one issue that I think is very important, we've done this in the last couple of days as well, in terms of the big issues around young South Africans, are the issues of entrepreneurship, right? And where do they fit in, and how do young South Africans build up strong entrepreneurial or entrepreneurship networks? So let's talk about that with Lutando Kolwapi, who's the founder of Buri Bros. I hope I've got that right, Lutando. Good chatting to you. Hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Thank you for having me. And definitely you did get it right. It's
okay, Buri Bros, not Bruise, right? I mean, either way, Bruise sort of says the same thing. So look, I think it's an important question that not just young people ask, others ask. I often get told, Ashraf, you've got such a network of people. How do you grow a network?
Yes, no, thank you for that question, Ashraf. I just want to give you a context that we are a small owned enterprise called Buri Bros that formalizes within and operates within shopping centers within Johannesburg, and trying to formalize the whole aspect of trading in small food areas. And our biggest challenge, and what I think is very important, we need to speak of access to places of formal trade. I think that's such a huge challenge in terms of youth, young-owned businesses. Every young person has, an idea and wants to start a business, and they do start a business. And the problem then is coming to the element of having access to market and access to areas of formal trade. Because at the end of the day, we've got to understand that you may start your business, but you have to go sell your service or your product. And to sell that, you need to go where people go. And where people go are shopping centers, malls. And there's still a huge challenge of accessing those formal markets. And that's one of the impending issues that young people are facing.
So how then do they build a network?
To build a network, I think what is important is all about the element of branding your business. You brand the business, you brand your product. And once you're able to brand your product, people trust the brand, and people are able to come through and purchase your product. So the network element is very important to consolidate as young people and be able to come together and say, this is what we want around entrepreneurship. This is what we want in terms of access. Because yes, we can have the lip service, before elections. We get promised as young people that this and this will be done for young people. And then it gets quiet, and I think that's an element that you really need to address as young people in entrepreneurship, is that we need access.
So when you talk about build a brand, I mean, so there's two parts to it, and I'll split it up. One is building a brand in terms of, which is not the same as advertising, as we're well aware of, right? How does one then go about building a brand? So I mean, someone listening to us now, they've started another, because I'm picking up on your name, they're starting a Boerewors business, okay?
Yes.
And everybody sells Boerewors, but how do they differentiate? So what should they be doing?
So I'll give you our concept. So our concept is that everyone sells a Boerewors show, and every South African loves a Boerewors show. But what is going to make us different? And what makes us different is the element of we've elevated the Boerie. We actually specialize within gourmet Boerewors shows. And we've elevated the Boerie. We've made it and given it a South African twist. We give options of chaka, we give options of gourmet, and bring South African flavors into the Boerie. So once you are able to conceptualize what makes you different, that's where you're then starting to build your brand. And from there on, you always ensure that those elements that make you unique are always expressive, are always there, and people can rely on that brand, and then you grow from there.
All right. So one is that, and can they do it on their own? So one is creating the uniqueness, but then do you need to market that uniqueness?
Yes, 100%. For us, we mainly focus on social media. Social media advertising is very important to us, and it's quite affordable because you can zone in into a specific area that you want to focus in, and it's quite affordable. And another element is visibility. Make sure your colors are popping. Your name is, a bit of a tongue twister. It's a bit of an exciting, such as Buri Bros. So you got to be creative in that element. And when it comes to visibility, you want to go to places where there's high traffic, places where people will want to engage with your brand. That's very important. And unfortunately, within the formal sector, that has been such a challenge because first of all, they look at this business and they're like, no, this is a waste of time for us because it's not a big chain store that can be able to afford millions and millions of rent. But we want government, especially when we get a new minister of small business, to incorporate these things of that. Yes, people go to trade in these formal sectors, but how are we enabling these formal sectors to make sure that they incorporate youth-driven businesses, women-led businesses, businesses led by people living with disabilities? Those questions need to be asked. We can't just leave it to the private sector and think they will implement it on their own. Yes, they want to, but I think the private sector's perception of youth development is job creation. And I think more can be done, not just around job creation, but to enable young people to be business owners, business starters, and create jobs. For instance, we already have created 5 permanent jobs in our business, and we're trying to expand. But once again, the challenge is accessing this formal setting of where people go of centers and and malls.
And interesting, you made a point about social media that I think in today's times when people say social media is just a nonsense waste of time, a classic example at low cost you can actually manage and grow a brand. It's very possible, and alert yourself to mainstream media. I'm very aware of those type of things. Right now, having said that, right, that's in terms of brand building. Let's get back to the literal meaning of networking, which is like, can I connect with people that will open doors for me? How do you do that?
So first of all, you have to connect and go to places where like-minded people are at. So people where are also trying to start this business, networks of other sellers or other people who have similar businesses to you. You need to start to enter those spaces and you need to propose what you are doing. And you also need to learn, because starting a business is a lot of learning and unlearning. And in that element, it's not just an idea that's important, but it's also the implementation. And to create that network, you need to access those spaces. You have to look at a business that may be similar to what you are doing and say, okay, what are they doing? Most of the times we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Most of these things are there. We just need to do our research. How can I access? How can I learn from another business similar to mine and build into that network, so that's very important. Once again, in social media elements, those networks are there. You look at, there are Facebook groups, there are WhatsApp groups. You join those groups and try to help each other out as young people to want to enter into business.
Right, let's leave it at that. Thank you for your time. Lots to think about. I'll tell you what, talking about social media, I'm going to rely on you to tweet out all the things we've spoken about. And then just tag SFM Radio and tag me, and let's see how far that goes. I'll certainly share that.
And let's tag Buri Bros ZA. Definitely do that.
I'm going to ask you to tag us as well, and we'll repost it. You see, there we are. We're networking. We're networking on air. That's the way it should go. Perfect. Thanks for your time. Much appreciated. There we are. Right. Some important insights, certainly, if you want to grow your own business. Let's get to other things about growing the cabinet, and people have opinions about Floyd Shivambu.
Hi, Ashraf. My Minister of Finance would be, it will be what you call Floyd Shivambu. Home Affairs, it will be Mackenzie. And police, I'll put Kenny Kunene. And then for presidency, I'll put John Steenhuisen, unpopular choice. Deputy president will be Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa. Then from there, the SOE departments, I'll put Mr. Julius Malema. And the rest can be ANC cadres. Thank you.
Okay. Interesting. You said Cyril Ramaphosa. John Steenhuisen, unpopular choice. But you didn't say the same thing for Gayton McKenzie and Kenny Kunene. I'm just wondering why. I thought that was interesting. Let's get further opinions. Well, talking about Gayton, Yeah, people have opinions.
Good afternoon, brother Ashraf. That lady who's saying Gideon Mackenzie must become one of the safety to replace Begit Kele. What a shame. Very sorry, that guy is a thief. He's a former thief. He's got a criminal record already. So he's not worth that position and he will never be a minister. That's all. Because otherwise he'll kill the economy of South Africa. Thank you. Have a nice day. This is Mr. Timbe Poof here in Eastern Cape. Thank you.
Tell you what, your pulse is racing. There's no question about that. So that means we need to get the Minister of Police on board.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm Svito from Guatemala. I'd like to differ with Mawanda from Eastern Cape a little bit on the issue of Tata Mkwanazi becoming the Minister of Police. Tata Mkwanazi would be suitable to be a national commissioner and promote Fanima Semula to the Ministry of Police. I think it would be better like that because Tata Mkwanazi is too hands-on to be on the ground than Fanima Semula. And I think Fanima Semula is rather administrative in terms of his work. Thank you.
Okay. I wonder if anybody agrees. Would anybody institute an existing cabinet minister in the same position? Or would you change them all? Think about that. Well, let's take a quick call before we get to the news. Here's Raj in Durban. Hi, Raj.
Yes, hello, Ashraf. Ashraf, you had a rep from the EFF who spoke about expropriation of land.
Yeah.
I would say that because she is in the majority race group, it's easy for her to say expropriate land. How would she feel if she was in the minority group and somebody came up to her and said, "I'm going to expropriate your land"?
Okay, but we don't know that, Raj. I'm going to let you go only because your sound's bad. I'm absolutely battling to hear you. I think I got what you're saying. How would it be if she was in a minority group? But we don't really know that, do we? Here's another one, Ashraf. The EFF presser is in about 10 minutes. Why on earth would it be necessary for the public to speculate on what they reveal? We're talking about the IFP, by the way, not that's Brati suggesting why. Brati, it's just speculation. You're taking it too seriously. I mean, that's really what it is, because I don't know what people will think. We're not giving it any airtime at all. It could be a couple of minutes. That's it. The main thing is that presser should start pretty shortly. Let's get the news now. It's 5 o'clock with Greg.
Thank you, Ashraf. Eskom replaces hundreds of transformers and no MPOX treatment available in SA. Good afternoon. Eskom says it's replaced over 400 transformers damaged by network overloading since January this year. This comes as firefighters battled a blaze at a Eskom substation in Soweto this morning. Eskom spokesperson Aubrey Sample.
Electricity theft is wide-ranging and includes illegal connections, network equipment theft, vandalism, meter bypass and tampering, as well as unauthorized network operations and purchasing electricity from illegal vendors. Overloaded transformers as a result of electricity theft present a serious risk to human life. The time, funds and manpower used to replace these transformers could have been utilized to improve the reliability of our network, electrify more communities, improve the experience of our paying customers and create more jobs.
Meanwhile, firefighters have contained the blaze at the Eskom substation in Soweto. Several areas, including Zola, Dobsonville, Mdeni and Jabulani, are without power. It's believed the blaze started this morning after residents heard a loud explosion. Johannesburg Emergency Services spokesperson Kulele Kumalo says there are no reported casualties.
The fire that was reported to EMS this morning at 9 o'clock in Zola Soweto substation has been contained. The firefighters are still on scene extinguishing the hot spots.
The Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Temin Kadameng, says 280 million rand is needed to rebuild damaged infrastructure in areas hit by last week's tornado in Tongaat, north of Durban. She's classified them as national disaster areas. At least 12 people were killed. The KwaZulu-Natal government says initial assessments show that over 7,000 homes north of Durban have been damaged. The minister explains.
Meaning then that government at a national level as well will collaborate with the province and the municipality in trying to bring people's life into normality. There's quite a lot that needs to happen. One, you will see some of the areas where people have built is not actually a formal settlement, which means the people need to be moved into the phase 2 of what they call, I think, Greyland area, which has a phase 1 and a phase 2, which then needs services, infrastructure that needs to be built.
The World Health Organization's confirmed there is no registered treatment for the Mpox disease in this country. Of the 5 cases reported in South Africa, 1 person died at Tembisa Hospital east of Johannesburg on Monday. The WHO's Nzaku Fabian says they're working around the clock to make sure the treatment is available in South Africa.
We are working very closely with the ministry team and also partners to make sure that as much as possible, as soon as possible, we get the drugs available to the patients. As we speak, 10 doses have been packed, just waiting shipment from Geneva to here. So we're working with the team to make sure the paperwork is actually done. And this shipment can actually be available, but also more other doses to be ready.
Police in Indian-administered Kashmir say 2 suspected militants and a police officer have been killed in a clash near the border with Pakistan. The BBC's Anbarasan Etirajan has more.
Security forces rushed to the village of Harinagar overnight after the residents raised alarm about the presence of unidentified men. Both the suspected rebels were killed during the operation. Elsewhere in Kashmir, insurgents attacked an army checkpoint in the Doda area, injuring 7 security personnel. Police say the militants may have crossed over from Pakistan, which, like India, claims the Himalayan region in full. Delhi accuses Islamabad of supporting and arming the rebels, a charge Islamabad denies.
The top story, Eskom says it's replaced over 400 transformers damaged by network overloading since January this year. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Kuss.
Coming up in your sports this hour, PSL Awards to take place on the 23rd of June and Nadal and Alcaraz to team up at the Olympics. More details at 5:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
And if you're on your way through Midrand, the Mike 1 N1 option fairly busy again today from Sandton all the way through to about Samrand Road. That's only half the story. The other half story is what's going on the Pretoria Main Old Joburg Road. There's a really significant backlog heading north. There's some delays southbound as well, but northbound coming up from sort of Grand Central all the way through territory on Old Joburg Road. Really very heavy today. Crash opposite the airport on the R21 north at 4 Trekker Road. That's pushing traffic back to Griffith Road and back along the R24 back past Barbara Road. So heavy delays out that side. Durban, the N2, worth avoiding heading north towards the airport or Belito, Kwanakusa area. There's a major backlog. A broken down vehicle at Sabaya in the roadworks. 1 lane open. Traffic parking all the way back through to Queen Nandi Drive. The M4 is busy over the First Highway section, but and 2 will today. And Cape Town, Marine Drive, still slow out of town towards Lagoon Beach and Boundary Road. The highway's not too bad. A little bit of traffic on the N1 and a breakdown at Plattercliff Hill area on your way to Belleville. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation. SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, I did say for me, what moves the National Pulse has got to be what's going to come out of the IFP press conference. Hasn't yet started. Should have started a few minutes ago. And as soon as it happens, we will get to that. Doesn't mean you can't talk about the IFP and any other political party, because based upon the conversations we've had in the last 24 hours, although there's no confirmation, it looks clear that the EFF are not part of any deal. The MK party, we know already, not part of any deal at this moment in time, which means that the ANC, if they wish to form a government of 50 plus 1, they would have to either do a deal with the DA. I mean, that's enough, but it could be DA IFP, or it could mean do a deal with all the smaller parties that would want to do business with them, including the IFP, to get to that 50 plus 1 outside of the DA. We don't know. We will have to see, and maybe that IFP press conference will give us a good insight into that. Things clearly changing. In the meantime, let's do this. I'll take your calls. I'll get your WhatsApp voice notes as well, right, as soon as we can. But let's do this. We should be chatting to Dr. Fikile Vilagazi, who's a political analyst after the press conference, but we're going to do it the other way around now. So let me bring you in then, Dr. Vilagazi. Appreciate your time.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Good afternoon.
I certainly can, and you're live on the National Pulse, right? So yeah, we're going to do two takes then. I suppose a preview and review because of the delayed start of the IFP press conference, right? What are your expectations? What do you think is likely to happen today?
It's quite an interesting time, honestly, in our politics. I anticipate that IFP is probably going to share with us, some of their thoughts around who they're likely to go into coalition with. My suspicion is that they are probably going to lean closer to the MK. That's my suspicion, particularly for KwaZulu-Natal. At national level, also maybe, look at the possibility of lying somewhere wherever the DA and the ANC may be. So those are my suspicions. And mainly because of the relationship that the IFP has had over time with the DA in a number of spaces. But the dynamic in KwaZulu-Natal definitely, in my reading, brings them closer to the MK because of land issues, because of the kingdom issues and land issues, rurality, and so on. So there are so many similarities between them and the MK, and I think we are likely to hear something to that effect. Okay. But we just have to wait and hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that would be interesting because it does suggest then that although they are playing in the same space, I'm talking of the IFP and the MK in that KwaZulu-Natal stronghold, they don't see themselves as adversaries. They would be willing to work together, although the reality is that the rise of the MK could at some stage threaten the existence of the IFP itself, isn't it?
Totally. I mean, they already have taken territories that belong to the IFP. I mean, I'm talking about the MK now. So it would be to the favor, in fact, of the IFP to see the MK not necessarily as enemies, but as people that are speaking the same language. They may be just wearing a different T-shirt. And I think if you look at the history of the province, and the role of the leadership that has been the leadership of the MK now and the leadership of the IFP then. These are people that have been comrades before. They've actually walked the journey together over time. Of course, along the way, they got divided by political ideologies and ways of working. But at the center of the politics of KwaZulu-Natal in particular, there's a lot of synergy, there's a lot of resonance around just understanding the culture of the province, the people of the province, the layout of what is needed to govern KwaZulu-Natal, I think the IFP will need to find each other with the MK, not necessarily see the MK as something that has taken something away from them.
So, I mean, we've heard sort of two bits of news in the last few hours. One was, and it's been reported in the Mail and Guardian, and I think at News 24 as well, but certainly the Mail and Guardian, that in fact a deal has been struck between, the ANC as well as the the IFP and the DA to get to that 50+1 in fact, nationally. Sorry, in KwaZulu-Natal. Let's get that right. That's the one story we've heard, right? Then we've heard later on that the MK party, although they're out of Parliament, appearing in Parliament on Friday, they have now reached out to the IFP. So that is at a regional level. And do you have any thoughts on an IFP doing a deal with the ANC at provincial level, in spite of what you said earlier on?
That's a tricky one. That's a very tricky one. I suspect that I still suspect differently. I do not see the IFP really taking a deal with the ANC at provincial level. But I mean, I could be wrong completely. Also because it depends on what the mission is. If I read and understood the commitments of the IFP politically, the IFP tends to be leaning towards the government of national unity, which is the language that has been spoken by the ANC, and mainly because of their history as well in terms of the 1994 governance coalition structure, which was between the ANC, the IFP, and the National Party at that time. So if for instance, something within their politics currently takes them back to where they have been before, they are likely then to say, maybe we need to go back to what we had with the ANC at that time. But there's a whole range of things that did not work in that relationship.
How would you then, so if you were the IFP, I mean, you've given an example of why they should do business with the MK party in KwaZulu-Natal. Why do you think they should not do business with the ANC and the DA?
I'm not necessarily suggesting that they should not. I'm just saying that there's a lot to amend there. There's a lot of healing that needs to happen between them because, number one, I think they would need to deal with the violences that happened in the 80s. We know that kind of woundedness is still sitting between the ANC and the IFP in particular. And of course the DA somewhere has got to account for that. So they need to start those relationships, and we know that's the thorny issue, particularly around reparations and so on. And so it will depend on whether they are willing to do that work of healing, or they just want to start on what they would imagine as a clean slate, which would be then, with the MK. Not necessarily so clean, but at least it may not carry those kinds of conversations forward.
Okay, we understand there's been a slight delay in that IFP presser, but as soon as it happens, I think it's going to happen imminently. As soon as it happens, we will cross there. Let me then just ask you this then. So one is the IFP scenario in KwaZulu-Natal. How would that then differ with how they may choose to form an alliance nationally, as you've alluded to earlier, with that government of national unity?
The INC, I think, is in a difficult position, and I'll tell you why. Because if you look at national politics, they would have to negotiate themselves in a manner that positions themselves within the promotion of and protection of a traditional leadership conversation. And at the moment, if for instance, they go into the same date with the ANC, they will be forced to engage with the issue of Ingonyama Trust. They will be forced to engage with the issue of the demands that are being made, for instance, by the current Ingonyama in relation to the powers of the king, the powers of the kingdom, versus the role of the Ministry of Rural Development and Land Affairs, for instance. And those issues take them to Ingonyama Trust. Now, Inkatha Freedom Party has got a very particular position around that. They are very defensive. On the Ingonyama Trust, they actually firmly believe that Ingonyama has got to be given custodianship of the land so that then they can use the land to maximize economic participation for the majority of the people. So if they then, go into a coalition that has got the NCDA in it, that is going to be a contradiction that is likely to challenge them, mainly because of the positionality of the DA around questions of land. They may find each other with the ANC, which I think they have over time, but I think the DA has a very different position when it comes to that.
Okay,
so that's the only thing I think
all right. What I'll do now is we're going to put you on pause, Dr. Fikile Vilakazi, and we won't quite cross to the press conferences yet. It hasn't yet started, but I'll put you on pause because we can stop previewing for now. And let's take some for the callers, and then as soon as we're done with the press conference, we will come back to you, right? So, appreciate you giving off your time. So let's get to those callers. I think we have, do we have Eddie in Odendaals was first up? Eddie, 2 in 2 days. Hello.
How are you, Ashraf?
Yeah, good, man. Thanks. Right, go ahead.
Well, I'm here that you've been thirsty to hear my voice.
Well, I did mention Odendaals was at the beginning of the show. I did do that, yeah.
No, I hear that. Yeah. And thanks for the marketing. Ashraf, I'm saying now, come Friday, those who have been elected from their different parties, they must go and be sworn in. And we need to see government operating so that people can get services that they deserve. And as I said yesterday in my voice note, whether my ANC is not doing well, we'll come here and voice and say, you guys are failing us. And I just hope that people like Mahlobo and others, those who are in the Zondo Commission, they should not make it. I'm pleading with my ANC not to put those people in Parliament. They must just it doesn't even need the organization to do that. They must do it themselves. Just choose themselves. You don't have to wait for the organization to instruct you.
Well, that's true. That's true. Very true.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for that, Eddie, putting Odendaals on the map. Anonymous is putting Harry Smith on the map. Hi, Anonymous.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah, good talking to you. Go ahead.
Yes, Ashraf. Yes, I want to deal with the following points, Ashraf, quickly.
Yeah, right.
The issue of, I think this has been perpetuated by the media that maybe there's a flip-flopping around the working relationship of EFF in the past in local government, sphere, with the DA. No, I think we are missing the point. I think EFF has articulated its position clearly here that the intention was to unplug the ANC, which was arrogant when it came to dealing with the very same principles that the current EFF is putting forward in terms of the government of national unity or whatever you call it, the coalition. So ANC, we know that if they are having their hands on the budget, they are going to be a mess, and the ANC is going to make sure that, they become more arrogant and they become much more stronger than any other party. I think that strategy has worked. I don't think we are giving the EFF enough credit that it deserves in terms of ensuring that, we reduce the majority of ANC currently. It was not only because of the emergency of MK that, we've managed to...
But how did the EFF, help me with this, how did the EFF reduce the majority of the ANC when the EFF's own numbers were reduced in this election?
Of course, Ashraf, the EFF constituency have voted for EFF. It's just that EFF lost the votes that actually were borrowed from the, members that were disgruntled with the ANC, in the past, when Jacob Zuma was actually, ousted in the ANC. That's the issue there. But, if you look, in most of the municipalities where ANC was in power, ANC could not do well. Their majority were reduced significantly because they did not have resources like they used to do by, using the platform of government, to grow their support.
Thanks for making your point. I need to move on, Anonymous. I appreciate it. I need to move on. Thanks for that call and got us thinking about the issues of the EFF. We'll allocate some of the other comments in a moment.
Here on SAFM, we honor the contribution of the youth for our liberation. The students laid down their lives for the right to equal education. We salute them. Youth Month on SAFM.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
I think we had the call earlier about Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman. Here's a response. Good day. The extent of Islamophobia in the country is shocking. Our constitution embraces freedom of expression an association on a daily basis, economists, political analysts, they are not politicians, NGOs, academics, civic organizations come on air and express political opinions. Why should Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman be treated differently? Well, I agree with you. It's not even about what he says, that he is a public figure and what he says impacts society, and he expresses an opinion. Why should we not have it here on the station? Let's get to some of your voice notes. Here's one on who chooses the ministers.
Hi, good day, Ashraf. This is Peter here in Hausvalder. Ashraf, I hear people choosing ministers on the sky. Yeah, but if we were given the chance as a citizen to choose the ministers, I will go and pick Mary McCullough for higher education as a minister. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, that's it. Mary Metcalf, Minister of Education. Here's an interesting one about COSATU.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Do you think COSATU and SACP, they are still existing? To me, they are no longer existing. Those people, they tell us that they are fighting for the rights of workers, but workers are still retrenched under the nose of COSATU. And SACP, they say they're fighting for the rights of workers, but you can't just see them playing their role. But now when it's come to the collusion, they hit and beating the ANC if they can make collusion with other parties. Yes, I'm not agree when the ANC wants to make a collusion with DA, but they told that they can drive the ANC. Thank you.
Okay, they can drive the ANC. Well, I mean, you're right. For those who are critical of parties who are very conservative and less transformative in South Africa, then you look at the party that's the center of everything we've done in the country for the last 30 years, which is the African National Congress and the allies. And you can question, seriously so, you can question and you can argue statistically, what have they done for the majority of the people? In fact, if we look at 10 issues that we've fallen down as a country, you have to, and it affects the majority of the people in the country, which happens to be black, you have to question what has been the role of the ANC. And I think, sadly so, the election results is a reflection of what people think. Never mind where they may have voted elsewhere. Just something to consider. Let's get some calls. Selby in Attridgeville. Hi, Selby.
Hi, Ashraf. How are you?
Good talking to you. So, Pretoria, Attridgeville, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, yeah.
Yes, Ashraf. You know what? When you get into marriage, most of the time you look at the possibilities and things that are going to make your marriage work. So I hear to you guys, most of you are blaming EFF if it's pulling out of the coalition or a what do you call it? Government of national unity. But we can't force it. EFF these policies are very clear. They are about the land and the nationalization and the free education, of which is something apart from what the DA is fighting for. So, because I voted for EFF and I like its policies, I really support them on their stance.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can't go and collude with people who declared us as enemy number one in the first place. Before the election, they said we are enemy. We are their enemies.
Yes, I heard that. Okay, I'm going to move on because of time. But I'm saying to you, at the same time, and I hear your point about the DA, at the same time, the same EFF have been very critical of the ANC. And they're still saying, if the ANC doesn't do business with the DA, we'll talk to the ANC. I mean, Leanne Matthys said it again today. They will talk, although she's called President Ramaphosa a chihuahua, for example, right? Okay, thanks for that call, Selby. Let's see if we've got further calls. We certainly have further comments. And here's another. Well, it's interesting. Okay, let's just see if we can sort that out. I don't know. There's one about. Okay, let me say this much. Let me say this much here. Let's see if we can connect with this and just play it on the other side because, there's a whole lot of connection issues. Let me just remind you, by the way, your comments in terms of the content that we carry are valid. And sometimes you can just WhatsApp us with things that you like listening to every day and things you perhaps don't like listening to every day. Of course, we as a drive time show, we have to cover a whole range of topics. But certainly it would be great to get your opinion and feedback. I welcome that. Here's one in terms of news, positive or not.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the SFM listeners. Man, I've been listening on the news today, and if it's not the elections, it's all other, devastating, sad news of this killing there, this collapse there. I'm not sure, man, if how the news are generated. Are you telling me there are no positive things that can always be slotted in outside of all the other news about someone is in court? It's just all these, there aren't any positive news that you hear these days.
Well, I tell you what, you raise a very important issue. I speak every day about what moves the national pulse, right? So the news and what happens around us impacts our individual pulse rate and the national pulse rate. And the national pulse rate at the moment is very much driven by what's happening with our elections and our forming of government. We can't deny that. So let's take two things. One, from this show point of view, we as a Drive Time show, we covered a range of issues. In fact, we had a fascinating chat about the Buddha Bros that we had. So we do cover that, and I think there'll be a lot more of that post the election. But during election period, we have to cover so much more around the elections because it is the biggest story of the year for us. As far as the news bulletins are concerned, there's a news editor that determines that. I would think they would follow a very, very similar procedure in terms of how they make their points. But we very actively try and look out for issues that absolutely makes you feel very good about yourself and picks you up. Point noted, but we are in election season. I'll just say that, right? Here's another about service delivery.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf the Tracker. Shout out to all the SNDF members who are forced to drive these unmaintained vehicles which stuck all over the place. Shout out to them. Shout out to the SNDF members. Here in Free State is Fred the Tracker here in Free State coming from Western Cape heading to KZN. Mr. Ashraf, these press conferences by the political parties, this is not service delivery. We need service delivery, not press conference. We don't eat press conference. Please, political parties.
I thought the press conference was to tell you about service delivery, Mr. Truck Driver. That's exactly where we are, right? Here's another on the EFF and the IFP.
Good evening, Ashraf. My source tells me that MK, EFF, and NFP have reached an agreement to govern KZN. And it seems as if IFP has been sidelined. That's what I've been told. Please follow that up. Thank you. This is Luzugo.
So you're saying EFF, MK, and IFP, and then IFP being sidelined, if I could hear that correctly. I heard the two, EFF, MK, and NFP. Okay, got that, right? Coming together effectively to sideline the IFP, who, according to earlier stories, would be part of another coalition together with the ANC, as we know. Well, that's why we need to hear those press conferences coming up pretty soon. Let's get to the news headlines now. It's 5:30. Here's Greg.
Thank you again, Ashraf. A quick look at the headlines. Tornado survivors in Tongaat, north of Durban, are appealing to government to ensure that recovery finances help those who need it the most. Eskom says it's replaced over 400 transformers damaged by network overloading, and the Indian Prime Minister's offered his condolences to the families of the people who were killed in Kuwait's residential fire. There's a full update at the top of the hour.
SAFM. guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, it's a heavy afternoon if you have anything to do with Midrand today. The N1 backing up from Santon all the way through to Samrand Road. It gets really heavy from Buccleuch on that run through to Samrand. That's going north. The alternative sort of parallel route, the R101, the old Joburg Pretoria Main Road option, very heavy. Going to pick queues up there from sort of New Road all the way through to Samrand. So the highway and the side road really heavy. Also a bit of traffic coming south out of Centurion on both the N1 down to a crash at Olifantsfontein and on the R101 going south towards Olifantsfontein as well. So lots of traffic through that part of Midrand. Winnie Mandela over the highway up towards Monte Casino's bad. Behind that, the N1 queuing from Rivonia Road. And there's big backlog still on the R21 option passing the airport today on your way north towards Tembisa. Collision near Voortrekker Road. Traffic backlogging on the R24 back towards the Edenvale exit. Durban, the one to avoid this afternoon, we've been saying this for a couple of hours already, is the N2 North. It's a stationary truck before Subaya in the roadworks. Only one lane open and the traffic is very heavy. Parking back halfway between Queen Nandi Drive and Inanda Road. So gives you an idea how jam-packed that is. The M4, the obvious alternative route's fairly busy. If you know what you're doing, you could probably squeeze in the middle along Umhlanga Rocks Drive and then pick up the M4 again from Umhlanga Rocks Drive. That'll avoid the worst of the traffic delays going north today. Cape Town getting busy at the Mitchells Plain. M7 queuing down to Highlands Drive. Very slow passing Samora Michelle. And then R300 queuing up. Just starting to backlog from the N2 highway down towards the roadworks at the Stock Road off-ram. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Now, yesterday, this time it was all about Bafana. Today, it's what? T20 cricket.
T20 cricket. It's the United States taking on India, and India won the toss and chose to bowl first. And both teams have 4 points, and another win from either side will secure a place in the second round Super 8s. USA are currently 61 for 4 after 12 overs. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka are on the verge of crashing out of the T20 World Cup after a rain forced their match against Nepal to be abandoned without a ball bowled. This saw both teams split 1 point apiece. So now Sri Lanka, to qualify for the Super 8, they just need the Bangladesh versus Netherlands fixture tomorrow to be washed out, and they need to beat Netherlands in their last group game on Sunday. Then they also need South Africa to beat Nepal by a big margin on Saturday morning, and then for Nepal to beat Bangladesh by a small margin on Sunday. So they lead a lot of favors, but some good news for the Proteas is that they top Group D and they have confirmed their spot in the Super 8. In football, the PSL Awards will take place on the 23rd of June, and you can catch all the action on SABC, and that is around 6:30. In tennis, Rafa Nadal and Carlos Alcaraz will team up to play doubles at this year's Olympic Games in Paris. Nadal won an Olympic gold medal in 2008, but the Paris Games will be Alcaraz's first. Nadal's participation was up in the air, with the 14 times French Open champion still not at his best following injuries. But national team coach David Ferrer has given the green light and says that the 38-year-old will now team up with the 21-year-old. And just wrapping up to remind you that don't forget that nominations for the G Sport Awards officially open. G Sports Awards are Africa's premier women's sports recognition to celebrate women in sports, and anyone can nominate women in sports that you think deserve to be celebrated. There are 20 categories, and it covers athletes, administrators, media, sponsors, supporters, and coaches. To nominate your favorite, you just need to head to gsport.co.za/nomination, and you can nominate anyone you like until the 9th of August.
I want to just question, you're not a tennis player, you're not playing at Wimbledon, and you're not playing at the Olympic Games in tennis, but if you had to, what would you want to win more, Wimbledon or the Olympic Games gold medal for your country?
That's a tough one. I saw Alcaraz says
Did you see? So Alcaraz said, I'd rather win
the Olympics than Wimbledon, which is quite interesting.
And it'll be playing with my idol, Rafael Nadal, for my country.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I get him, but I find it interesting also.
I'd like to attend. I did say I wouldn't attend the Olympics. I'd be happy to attend both Olympics and Wimbledon just to watch.
I was just telling a colleague earlier on that I'd love to go to the Olympics now because Rafa and Alcaraz will be playing.
So, let's pitch for that. Let's get to me to the Olympics. What do we need to do to get you to the Olympic Games?
I need a sponsor.
We need to get you to the Olympic Games. You need a sponsor. Anything else in consider? Okay, you work out your pitch. We'll do it every day.
Okay.
And how many days for do we get to the Olympic Games? Just give us the date. Olympic Games?
The Olympic Games are approximately on the 26th of July, so 44
so
days
you got about
to go.
a month and a bit to go. Right,
Yeah.
okay. Let's get to the Olympic Games. Right, there we are. And it's in France, in Paris, Nohar, right? Okay, that's it for sport. You're at your goodbye.
That's it
'Cause
from
some
my
people complain
side.
when you don't give your farewell.
Yeah, I am doing Kapele.
Okay, there we are.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
All right, let's get to the facts and figures. And maybe Jimmy Moya has got some ideas about how we can get to the Olympic Games. He, of course, hosts the MoneyWeb show coming up from 6 to 7. But for now, the MoneyWeb market update. Jimmy, go ahead.
Good evening, Ashraf. Good evening, Dumi. Good evening to the listeners. We can crowdfund for Dumi's experience to Paris. That's very easy to set up, and I'm sure everybody listening out there would be contributing towards that, so we can definitely get her there.
I would have thought a working trip would be the way to go, but, not even crowdfunding, just a working trip.
Well, if you do a working trip, then you kind of have to get the relevant approvals and all of those things, and it becomes a long process. I'm just thinking about the time that we have. We don't have too much time.
Well, we are talking about Minister of Sport, after all. I mean, that's what she is on the show. So anyway.
National importance. It is a national importance. Yeah, you're right.
All right, go ahead. Tell me about the markets.
Markets have been moving quite interestingly today. We are going to be chatting to the Chief Financial Officer of MultiChoice. They reported their full year's numbers. Lots to dig into there. About 8.5 billion rand of non-financial or non-cash adjustments they had to go through. They've swung into a technical insolvency state, which is effectively just their liabilities exceed their assets on hand at the moment. Obviously, that Canal Plus deal is still going ahead. So I've got a conversation with Tim Jacobs, the Chief Financial Officer at MultiChoice. We're going to try and unpack as much of the numbers that came out as possible, but also what this could potentially mean going forward for the MultiChoice group and what lies ahead after the acquisition goes through, if it does indeed go through at this stage. We are still optimistic that it will, but anything can happen, so we're going to speak to Tim Jacobs around that and try and understand what's happening there. Then we've also got a conversation with Group CEO of SPAR, Angelo Swartz, about their performance. They also put out numbers, and interestingly enough, SPAR has elected to exit their Polish business. This was something that they went into that didn't go over so well with shareholders in the past, along with that SAP rollout that cost them quite a bit of money. The share price has been under pressure for a long time, so they had to do a lot of cleaning up and introspection there. So I'm going to speak to Angelo and see how that's been a sec. And then we've also got a conversation with Alan Gray around opportunities around the world that might not be as expensive as investing in markets like the US. And then because it's Wednesday, we've got our Executive Lounge segment. And on today's segment, I've got a conversation with a lady by the name of Gurshul Neertling. She is a divisional executive at Liberty. So we're going to get to know her a little bit better and see what she gets up to when she's not at work. But as I said, Henko Kreer has been keeping an eye on the markets for us throughout the day. He joins me now to reflect on some of those market movements. Good evening, Henko. Thanks as always for keeping an eye on the markets. I see this US CPI print came out at 2:30 and the markets absolutely loved that.
Yes, Jimmy, you're quite right. Markets are running, and markets worldwide at the moment as green as grass abroad as well as here by us. Good evening to you, Jimmy and Ashraf and Tumi, and good evening to all of our listeners. Let's kick off with the US markets. The Dow Jones at this stage 0.5% up. The S&P 500 trading 1.2% stronger. And look at this, the Nasdaq at this stage 2% stronger. Similar story in Europe, where the FTSE 100 finished 0.9% stronger a short while ago. The DAX finished 1.4% up, and the CAC 40 gained 1% today. And then here by us, the JSE's all-share index finished 1.3% stronger, and it increased to a level of 77,051 points. The industrial index was 1.1% stronger. The financial index, as well as the resources index, those two finished 1.5% up at the end of the day. SPAR had a wonderful day because it gained 12% today. Telkom gained 6%. Implats finished 4% stronger. First Rand and Alphaman each gained 3.5%. And 91 and Amplats finished the day 3.4% stronger. On the negative side, Coronation lost 5% today. RCL and Bidcorp each finished 1% weaker. Also, Reinet, Aspen and Vodacom, they also each lost 1% today. If we have a look at some of the larger companies, Naspers and Prosus had a wonderful day. Both of them finished 2.2% stronger. And then if we move across and have a look at the currencies and how they're doing, the Rand strengthened by almost 1% to the US dollar today. At the moment, 18 Rand 40 you'll pay for a dollar, then 19 Rand 98 for a euro, 12 Rand 33 for an Australian dollar, and 23 Rand 64 for a British pound. On the commodities market, the price of gold is $2,327 an ounce. Silver is trading at $30, platinum $966, and palladium $906 an ounce. The price of Brent crude is $82.14 a barrel. And then lastly, the price of a Bitcoin now sitting at $69,800, and that is still 1,320,000 rand. And Jimmy, that's how the markets performed.
Thank you very much for that update, Henku. Lots to dig into, as I said a little earlier on, and the markets are still running. For a bit of context, the gold price ran about $20 on the back of those CPI numbers from the US. We still have the US Fed meeting coming up later, including a conversation, or rather a speech from Fed Chair Jerome Powell. So we still have a lot to look forward to from the US markets. But by all accounts, equity markets loving it. Not such a good day for the US dollar, but that has had its run up to now. So we're going to dig into these and other stories a little later on. For now, Ashraf, back to you and the team.
Thanks for that, Jimmy. And I'll tell you what, as you stop talking about the markets, we get to the markets of politics, or the business of politics. That IFP press conference now just about starting. Mkhuleko Klengwa doing the introductions, and we'll hear from them now. So we're taking the feed live. If they finish early, we'll get reaction. Either way, you can react anywhere, but let's get to the feed.
All right, no, thank you very much. I hope we are audible. Good evening, and we apologize for this delay. As I indicated earlier on, the National Council overran, so we apologize for that. As you know, it's unlike us in the FP not to start on time, and I can assure you this will be a once-off reality. We'd like to welcome the Honorable President, VF Hlabisa, the Treasurer General Babu Singh, the Deputy Secretary General Babu Mwango, a member of the NEC Babu Tlatlam to this briefing. Copies will be made available to you shortly. May I take this opportunity now and request the Honorable President to go through the statement, which is the outcomes of the IFP's National Council meeting, which concluded a short while ago. Mr. President, over to you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Mkhuleko Klengwa. Greetings to the national leadership of the IFP that is present in this briefing. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, these are interesting times indeed. Thank you for joining us this afternoon to enable the IFP to brief you, as well as the people of South Africa, on decisions we have taken as the broad leadership of the party based on the outcome of the 2024 national and provincial elections, and on engagements that have taken place since the announcements of the results on the 2nd of June 2024. Throughout the IFP's campaign for 2024, we presented the IFP as a government in waiting, a leadership that must have an influential voice in the governance of our country if we are to rebuild South Africa. We are grateful to the electorate for the remarkable support expressed for the IFP through the ballot box, indicating strong alignment with the IFP's vision of how we can turn South Africa around. Through a free, fair and democratic election, the electorate indeed rejected the continued majority rule and gave its mandate for coalition governance. Indeed, the 2024 national and provincial elections were a pivotal moment in the history of our country. It marked a turning point in the direction of our country and ushered in a new era in the political dispensation. Coalition governments have come to stay, deciding how our country will be governed going forward. The election results put our country at the crossroads. The voters spoke loud and clear that they are not giving one political party a majority rule to govern alone the national government and in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng provincial governments. The people of South Africa who voted said that political parties must find each other, find a common ground, put the interest of the country first and take South Africa forward. Thus, the announcement of the election launched an intensive period of negotiations, speculation, insightful analysis, and even fake news, during which South Africa has held its collective breath, praying for stability and economic growth. The IFP's National Executive Committee met on Sunday, the 2nd of June 2024, on the day the election results were to be announced in the afternoon, and we established a task team led by our Deputy President to engage in discussions with other political parties and negotiate the best outcome for South Africa. Following a period of intensive engagements, the task team has finalized its work and has briefed the IFP's NEC. Today, the final report of the task team was tabled first to the NEC and then to the National Council, which is the IFP's highest decision-making body between conferences. The National Council this afternoon deliberated on this report and carefully considered the direction to take to rebuild South Africa and contribute to the future of our country. I take pleasure in briefing you and the people of South Africa on the decisions taken by our National Council. The National Council of the IFP, having met to discuss the various scenarios presented to them, they have decided on the following. At a national level, the IFP has decided in forming part of a government of national unity. The IFP has agreed to form part of the government of national unity. Provincially, we are working towards forming a government in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, having met with the ANC, DA, and the NFP in this province. This continues to be a work in progress while we understand the deadlines of Friday. I must clarify on the issue of Umkhonto Wesizwe. On the MK party question and the subsequent letter which has been circulating in the public domain, we can confirm that we have received a letter and we agreed to meet with Umkhonto Wesizwe party. However, the leadership of the MK failed to honor a pre-arranged meeting. Our delegation waited for some time. However, when they failed to arrive, the meeting was cancelled. There has been renewed attempts today by the MK